Probably got a
like
soaker and had to go back and change his socks.
Yeah. Well, I was doing pretty
I
good
gotta
until
tell you, you could wring my socks out.
I walked from
Look at this.
Till I walked from the other
Holy
side of the road.
cow.
I mean, I'm soaked.
You brought somebody with you.
Bruce not here? Back home right now.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
This is the Grand Traverse County special meeting in regard to the strategic plan for 2013 through 2016, held at the Governmental Center in Traverse City. I'll call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Inman,
Here.
Lathrop,
Here.
Max Bauer,
Here.
Rennie,
Here.
Thomas. Yep. Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool.
Perfect.
We'll pass
been-
the, we'll
been
pass the
studying-
check slip back down to
You've
her.
been studying Sonny too long. As soon as he walks in, he says, here.
So,
We've called the roll.
That's fine. So, public comment? Seeing none. I guess we turn it over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to be back with you, and I actually admit I'm a little relieved that it's not a beautiful day out there, so I know that, where else would you rather be than here working on your strategic plan, right?
That was long.
Pam. Oh, you got, you're wearing one?
I've got a lapel
Oh,
mic.
sorry.
Is it?
I couldn't hear you,
Okay.
but
How's
I'm
that?
partially, I have,
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
I can't adjust the volume, but
No,
I
that's
can
good.
adjust
Thank
the
you.
placement. Okay, yeah, thank you, Kristen. What I did after our last meeting is I took all the stuff, the flip chart sheets from there, from the walls, my notes, and I produced a first document for you. And so I used some judgment about where to put things, how to organize things. We did agree on a few things, and so those things are in here. And I actually created two documents. I created a plan and a strategic blueprint. And so we're going to work on those two documents today. I'm only the author, so this is your plan. So it's really important that you not worry about offending me or my concerns related to authoring the document. It needs to be yours. So I took my best shot at it, but you might disagree with how I organized some things, or you'll see for sure things are missing because we didn't get completely done with your plan, right? So what we're going to do today is work on refining these two documents and really try and put more meat on them and make sure that they really represent what you want to accomplish over the next 3 years, what you'd like to see happen. I'd also like to spend some time today talking about how to implement. So what else needs to happen? How do you need to organize to make sure that you're able to implement the plan that you create? So those are my two big agenda items for today. After today, again, I will go away. I will create another draft. I'll route it. You'll be able to comment on it. We can fine-tune it and get it to where you really feel good about it. And I'm always available to come back. So this doesn't have to be our last meeting. If you feel like, gosh, we could use some more time on this, just be sure to let me know. But we'll try to do as much as we can online after this session. So that's the plan for today. And I think the easier document to start with is the blueprint document, because it's all sort of laid out for you visually. And so let's start here, but we can segue back and forth between the two documents. Before we get too far along, though, I want to spend a minute just pointing out that we do have some census data that was put into this most recent version of the plan, thanks to John and his assistants. And so someone had asked that we have, I can't remember which of the commissioners asked for that last time, but asked that maybe we could have some information about the public, the population. And so when you look at the census data, you will see that your unemployment rate has started to come down the last 2 years in the county, that population growth has continued to increase, population has continued to increase, and it's projected to continue to increase. So you're going to see, So those are pretty positive economic indicators there. And also, we're seeing an aging population, which is more pronounced than in other areas of the state and in other counties. So it represents folks wanting to come live here in their older years and their retirement years and finding this an attractive place to come. So those were the three things that I really gleaned from that data. I don't know if anyone has any questions about the census data before we get into the document itself, or John, if you have anything else you wanted to add to those comments?
I don't think any of us were surprised by that data. The other thing about it is, particularly the aging population brings a whole different set of needs to our community also.
That's right.
And I think that's the one thing we have to remember. All of a sudden, we need to talk about, housing capabilities, accessible housing. We don't need all $2 million homes. We have needs for additional housing that people can just live in.
And the aging population, just as we kind of think about the county and your planning, what is complex about it is there's a real difference between somebody in that 65 to 72-year-old age range versus somebody in the over 85-year-old age range. So the needs aren't necessarily consistent across that whole, we talk about them as a big clump.
65.
But there's real differences between the younger, older adult and the most elderly of that group. And so as you think about your planning and housing and transportation and many of the needs of healthcare, many of the needs that they will have, it does change within that population group.
I think another thing that hits in there is employment, because the seniors will demand a certain amount of support services, and what kind of services are going to be required, and they're not the higher income, higher pay jobs. And so therefore, it's going to have an impact on the housing that we have for the people that will have to work for the people that are seniors. So that's where your low-income housing starts to come into play, and also entry level, but I think it also has a lot to do with education, because we can't just expect that our education is going to be for kids that are going to college. And there are
That's right.
certain demographics of people that are going to be in that support services, and they're going to be earning just above minimum wage, and that's not going to be easy for them to find housing.
So very, very good points. Great.
Yep.
So let's look, I'm sorry.
We forget that a lot of the people who shouldn't go to college go into things like plumbing, electrical, and the service, which are
Trades.
good paying jobs.
Yeah, they should go into the trades.
And nobody ever talks about them, that they should go into those fields. Everybody wants them to go to college, and college don't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Didn't work for me.
Well, one of the things I noticed in our report yesterday was, that we don't have a lot of industrial properties or commercial properties into our mix. And do we want to grow our community in that arena, and how do we go about doing that? So do we have some sort of a plan that we're going to try and attract manufacturing businesses into our community, but then do we have enough population to be able to handle that?
Well, I think percentage-wise, just because of the topography, for lack of a better term, of our community, you're always going to end up with the residential class being so much larger. But we have some very significant commercial industrial development in this community. Absolutely, we do.
Okay, very, very good questions and comments. Great. Okay, with that, let's look at this blueprint document, and let's look at the bottom first. And what I heard from you last time is a desire to really have an impact on the county, on business growth, on job creation, public safety, having a clean and healthy environment. We had that on the sheet, clean and safe parks. recreational opportunities, public health, and engaged and supportive residents who feel like they have a good value, get a good value for their investment. And so I think about the impact of your work. Those are the things you're looking to see happen long range. That's the picture you have mentally of this is the kind of impact we'd like to see from all of our work, all of our efforts. Does that seem fair?
I don't see anything, the reason why I was late is I got this survey and I started working on this survey on the arts community.
Ah.
And I don't see anything in here under arts, and I know they're really starting to push on that to what we're going to do with the Grand Terrace Commons, the barns, and how do we look at arts in our community. And, we can put that under, supported residents, do they feel good value, safe parks, or recreational opportunities, but it really doesn't specify anything in the arts community.
Do you want me to add in something like vibrant arts community? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we're saying engage and support of residents who feel they get a good value for their investment, one of the things I'm struggling with is what do my constituents want? I don't know that I know that. And maybe we should find a way to poll our citizens to find out what they want. Because a lot of times what the people you hear from, it doesn't represent the true feeling of the community. So what is it our citizens want? I don't think I know that.
I think this survey that they're doing with the arts community is really going to be quite encompassing somewhat in that arena.
Yeah, but it's still looking at a target audience.
Oh, sure it is.
So I'm wondering
Still
if we shouldn't hire somebody to poll our community to find out what's important to them, because they're not necessarily picking up the phone and telling us.
So I'm not sure we need another survey.
But what I'm put this in the parking lot for us to talk about as we talk about strategy. And if we were with the TART people, they would say the bike rack,
Right.
not the parking lot. But what I think we should talk about when we get into talking more about your strategy is how you might have listening devices around the community to capture input. Places where people can give you feedback at point of service, or you could have polls up on the website for people who are visiting the website, one of those little instant polls to capture, just lots of places where you're intersecting with the public and capturing some information from them. So that might give you a better feeling for what they're thinking, how they're reacting to some of the things that you're doing. And if you had mechanisms to do that, it would be easy. Let's just set up we know how to do this. We know how to set up a poll. We'll set up a poll on the website. We'll set up a poll, those QR codes that you can use with your smartphone, something that people can use their phone and give you instant feedback on. There's lots of ways you could do that once you've figured out the process for doing that. So why don't we talk a little bit more about that as we talk strategy, because that might be really an important thing for you
Phones
to be
gotta be
thinking
smarter
about.
than you are.
I think microphones in the bathrooms would be a little bit out
It'd work, though.
Oh, they work.
Customer comment cards.
Well, just so you know, in the past, we've done some spot stuff over the last 20 years that some of us won't remember, some of us will, but, we've done exit surveying as people left the building, that dealt with the county department. If they're on a volunteer basis, if they had a few minutes. We've done, we've captured, in terms of our budget, what they thought was important. We've held, two public hearings two public input, say whatever you want to say about what you think is important about county government and expenditures at the Civic Center. We did that for 1 year. We did a survey online to help us, guide us about what the importance of certain areas of funding, areas of county government. We had that as a sort of a guide 1 year, just as an interim step before we really, but we never had a fully encompassed a strategy about how we want to capture public input and how that would guide us and what decisions we made in terms of funding things and not funding things and budgetary issues and policy and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there may be things that you learned from the past that were really useful that were more formal,
Right.
like doing exit surveys, and you might want to do some of those occasionally. But there might be some just real informal ways that you invite people to comment.
Believe me, when
Yeah.
we attend our township meetings, if somebody doesn't like something we're
You
doing.
know about it.
Or the way we're funding it or doing it,
Yeah.
we hear about it
Oh, yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
You
It's a
can
great
hold all
survey.
the- you can hold all the
But-
public comment, public hearings you want, but the fact is you will not get a cross-section of your community
Yeah,
there.
but outside of that, people are just relying on our, that's what I've been told, and that's what I guess I've learned over 20 years, people are relying on our, since we all come from different cross-section of the community and a cross-section of different backgrounds and work environments and family environments and stuff like that, cultures within the county and history, that they're all relying on us to make our best common sense decisions as an aggregate. They have other things to do in their life, like take care of their kids and their family and soccer and baseball practice and swimming lessons and making sure their kids are fed and staying out of trouble and everything else. So, they're not going to make it down to the township meetings. They're not going to make it down to our meetings. Some have the privilege now of, if they want to, trying to keep up with what's going on in local government, township government, and county government, and city government by watching TV. Some of them are televised. But outside of that, they're just kind of relying on us or what they read in the paper.
Yeah. Well, I also made a note that when we talk in the strategy section about setting customer service standards, having the public help you define what those are might also be useful. So that you're not, so they feel like you're really setting a standard and having them help you make the trade-off.
And I think if
Do we
you
spend more money on this and get a standard here? Do we spend less money and get a standard here? Have the public help you to do that.
Well, I think the only way the only way you're going to be able to get a true judgment call on that is just to survey that people that are actually using the services. Because you're not going to get a true
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
from someone that's not using the
That's
services.
right. Or the people that you want to use the service in some way that maybe aren't engaged in some way. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we get further along. Okay, so I'm going to make the one addition, something about the arts community, into your desired community impact. This will still be marked draft for a while, so as you think about this after our meeting, we can add things in, or even later this morning, we can add things in.
Well, when someone's going to have to help me that's been through Leadership Grand Traverse, but when I went through Leadership Grand Traverse, they had divided that leadership program into different components of the community.
They do, yeah.
Which sort of end up being our components in some fashion. I don't know if we've compared them lately, but they have one day where it's Arts Day, where you get to find out what's going on with, the Dennis Museum and all the different things that are coming in, cultural things and all that kind of stuff, plays. We have this new film festival thing and everything else, so there's a cultural value there, and then there's the public safety component, and then there's another education component, and then the following education component, and then there's the chamber component, which they do and help prosper the community and build businesses and bring people in. And it was, I don't know if there's a way to kind of compare all the components that they go through in their program compared to what we have listed on our sheet.
I think the question, though, when you come down to it, is where do we fit in it? And where does the community want to fit into it? So, when you talk about arts and entertainment, is it something that we as commissioners feel that we want to put budgets into, or do we feel that that's a community responsibility? Mm-hmm. Same thing with sports, same thing with parks, same thing with some of these other events. Do we want to put it in our goals, or do we want to say, okay, that's fine, we want the community to go forward, but we feel that the community should be the ones that's supporting this, not us as county government?
Well,
Because we can't do everything.
Yeah, and that's been sort of our philosophy.
Yeah, and I think we should continue with that personally,
Yeah.
so. Because we are fortunate that we have organizations like ICE, like the American Legion, like the soccer groups that really have stepped up to the plate and said, we're going to take on this responsibility. We're not going to accept public money to be able to do that. So I think we have to that's one of the questions that we're going to be struggling with, I think, is how far do we go into it?
There's some assumptions that are sort of underlying this plan that I think are important to kind of just think about here, whether these are good assumptions or not. Right now, I think they're what's there, is that you're not going to drive every single initiative here, that some things you're going to support. So you're going to support county department initiatives that help achieve these impacts. You're going to support other regional initiatives like the Grand Vision, like there's lots of regional initiatives related to healthcare and health and human services that are going to accomplish some of these things, but you might not be the driver or the initiator of every single thing that we would like to see happen in the county. And so some of the art here is going to be, what do we support with our knowledge, county resources, our people, our engagement, our advocacy, and what do we actively initiate and make happen, because no one else will if we don't. You know, and that's kind of the question here, because there's some things that you may uniquely have to do, and other things that as a group you're going to really support and try to help clear out barriers to success, find the resources, whatever it takes to make it happen. And those are kind of different roles for the county commissioners, I think.
You know, I'm looking at this sheet, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I just want to make a point, and then we can just get there when we get there, yes, is that for many years, probably the first 10 years that I was on the county commission, and I'm not going to tell you what years those were because you can call me an old man, but it was all about, it was part about the community, but it was more about how people felt about working for the county. And there's not a lot on here about Grand Traverse County as an employer. And that one of our goals is that we wanted to be we wanted to have the best reputation in town in terms of being people wanting to work here, okay? And having a really nice environment to work in, being innovative, strategic, the best technology, good benefits, people, when they worked here, they stayed here. And then we got into this, we can't be all things to all people, and then we got into this huge morale thing, and then people weren't happy, and then people didn't think that we were communicating well, and we had these surveys that would go out, these quality surveys on how well we were doing as an employer, and we were like rock bottom at one point in time, and we spent years trying to build those ratings up among our employees, that they actually felt that we cared about them, that we were putting resources toward them, that we trusted them and trusted their judgment in their job, and that they were being paid fairly, and that this is a good employer to be with and stay with. And so we've worked a long time to get to the point where we're at, and I know that we've slipped somewhat in this whole issue of compensation and reviewing classification plans and those kinds of things. Now we're getting excessive turnover, and we're just kind of assuming some of the reasons, but I think we need to, at some point in time, in whatever goal you put in here, I think we need to come back and talk about, this is the board of directors of not only a county government, but a major workforce.
Yeah.
And we got to think about the other side and how they feel about how the county's being operated, and are we doing a good job as policy and budget makers, and are we making this a good place to work, a challenging place to work? People want to stay.
Is that an impact that you want to add in? Do you want?
No.
Is that something that do you want to be viewed as one of the top employers in the region, or a good? Maybe you don't feel you can afford the investment to be one of the top employers? Is it
Right.
to be just a good place to work?
I think that whole philosophy is, you know, I'm
don't
not
really
sure
know
from
about
our
this.
chair the philosophy has changed in that regard, but I think from the community's philosophy that's changed. I think there was a time that, you know, governmental jobs were sought after because their wages and benefits were so much above everything else. And, you know, then all of a sudden you got the public opinion that, you know, why are they getting paid so much more than I am to do the same job? And I think we kind of got caught in the middle of that, Larry. I think we really, truly did. And we heard from that, you know, back a number of years ago before we started the, you know, the Siegel study, which, you know, is or is not a good document depending on who you ask. But the fact is, what it did show us is that, you know, the problem that study and a couple others that we've done shows us that's really just blaring out at you is the fact that our line workers, if you will, are being compensated accordingly. But where we're really short is our supervision and our higher positions. And all of a sudden, you know, when we looked at the Siegel study, you know, 80% of the budget impact was going to affect less than 20% of our employees, you know, and that just wasn't going to happen either. So, you know, the idea that we want to be a quality employer, I think that is important that we're a quality employer, but exactly how we arrive at that, I'm not sure that we have that answer. You know.
And maybe we can integrate that, or whatever you call it. I'm kind of fuzzy this morning, 1, 2, 3, 4, into the fifth goal.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, Larry, and I was also thinking that I might put something in the impact area too, that one of the impacts you want to have is that you're viewed as a quality place to
Well,
work.
we do have a strategic goal in talking about our human resources capability.
Yep, we do.
And it truly is a function of that, I believe, you know, that, you know, we do address our human resources thing, and that it probably needs to be a goal or a strategy or an impact, if you will, under the HR department, that we intend to continue to be a quality employer. You know,
I'm going
we've
to
got-
add a quality place to work or quality employer in the impact area.
Right.
And then we can talk, we get to the strategies
Right.
about other strategies
Right.
you might want to add in
Yeah,
here.
that's what I think
Yeah.
was-
And then I think we'll have, I
You
think.
know, the fact
yeah.
is, you know, we have 500 employees.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we have as many employees as Britain Services or, you know, Elmer's. You know, they're big companies in our
one of the
community,
biggest
and we have the
employers,
same
yeah.
number of employees they do. So we need to address that, but, you know, I think we have to remember there's a huge perception by the public that governmental employees are always paid too much and don't have to do anything.
It might not be
And that's-
about salaries and compensation, more about equity.
It really is about equity. It's about
there's
internal
that.
equity, and it's about,
Equity and
you know, the external equity is, it's hard to take a probation officer, for example, who's got a master's degree or even a bachelor's degree, and compare them to somebody in the private sector. There's no job like that in the private sector. So what do you pay a professional that's got those skills and that time on the job and knows how to work with that population? You know, how do you compare them?
Right.
You just don't. You can't. There are some that compare, you know, the person who is the secretary to, you know, the department head. There's a comparable job out there that you can point to in the private sector. And what you find in the public sector is those jobs are paid way more in the public sector than they are in the private sector. And when you go, the higher up you get in the organization, the more that disparate comparison happens. It's at the bottom of the organization, you know, where you don't even need a high school education. The jobs that don't require a high school education, they're paid way more than the private sector. And at the top, when you got a county treasurer that's, you know, handling $150 million a year, they're paid $70,000 a year.
I
And
think,
that just doesn't compare in the private sector.
well, if I could just summarize, I think what happened over the last 20 years is that the structure of county government when I started some 20 years ago was we weren't paid the best as the private sector, but we had better benefits than the
Right.
private sector. We had a defined benefit program.
And some stability.
We had an outstanding health care coverage. We had one of the best benefit packages that you could ever find in the private sector.
We still do.
And we still do. But we didn't pay as well. And all of a sudden, that all didn't matter. Now it's all about, how come my salary's low compared to when we do surveys to the local market? And, Ross has always said, and Dennis has always said, you gotta do both of them together, and then you gotta put a number on the aggregating them together, because you can't, they have to understand the one side versus the other side. So what happened is that gradually, over a period of years, we started gravitating towards, how do we keep our people, because we got to pay them more now, and they're not recognizing the benefit as a true strength for staying here. And so we got ourselves locked into trying to raise salaries while maintaining these great benefit programs. And now, if you look at the paradigm, the private sector might be paying more, but they don't have near the benefit package that we have at the county. And for young people, they're not focusing on benefit package because they don't plan on getting sick. They want to have the most money to buy the biggest house, the nicest boat, and they can take care of their family. So you're in this paradigm thing. If you're in a community that's got a lot of families and subdivisions growing over the last 20 years and a booming of the high school system and the other parochial systems, they're looking for the highest paying job, not necessarily, the top benefit job. So
One way we
that's
differ
kind
from
of
the
what
private
we went
sector
through.
is that when the private sector can't afford it, they don't pay it.
yeah,
And in the public sector, we have a hard time, in cutback years, which is what we just went through, 5 years of cutback years. We didn't react well to that. It was very difficult, morale went down, and I would submit that it's not the amount of the total wages and benefits, which there are studies out there that say the private sector still is about 17% above the public sector. However, it's not what you're getting paid and what your benefits are, it's the interrelationships. When you perceive that you're not being compensated fairly, and you look around, you look across the room and you see somebody else doing as, difficult of a job or as, responsible of a job, and you see that they're getting paid more or less, it creates a friction in the workplace and creates a perception that things aren't right and I'm not being treated fairly. And the impression, the perception that you're being treated fairly is the most important, I would submit. It's the most important thing that you can, as leaders, tell your workforce. We want to be fair with you. And even if that means we're cutting your benefits or we're cutting your salary, we want to be equal and fair with you. So that's why I would, my personal opinion is your internal equity is more important than any wage increase. And I've said that since I was interviewing here.
And we have on your strategy list to do the compensation and benefits
Right,
review.
okay.
And so that really will help, I think, to try to get things as equitable as possible.
Yeah, and I just wanted, and I know I'm taking time, but I just wanted to plug in that circle of history that
Yeah.
we've gone through for some of the
It's
newer
very
commissioners,
helpful.
to understand, what kind of the circle that we've got going here. Now we're right back to-
Discontinuation of longevity pay hurt us badly, too.
I had a question for our administrator. How do you rate our morale overall in your employee force?
Actually, I think our HR department's doing a fabulous job. I think, and I don't use that word often, I just think they're doing all the right things, trying to get our employees to come together in a lot of different ways, and they're very active. I think our employees have got really good attitudes, but I think the only place that we're in trouble is that one internal equity piece. Because there are people who, it's been a long time since you've looked at classifications, and we've cut back, so people are doing more important and more responsible work, but they're been frozen. Nope, you're not going to get any more money, even though you're doing more important and responsible things. And that's a source of unrest.
So is there unrest now, you feel?
I think that there are a lot of people who feel like they're just not getting their fair shake right now. And it's not just, it's not just employees, there's elected officials that feel that way
As
too.
far as turnover, based on your past experience, do we have more turnover now than in the past?
We're seeing a lot of
Are we?
it. But I just have a theory that it has to do more with the defined contribution
That
plan.
portion?
That defined benefit plans kept people in place. People said, well, I would go from, say, for example, in the law enforcement field. We get them all trained, they're on the road, and the state police calls and says, well, we can give you, 20 cents more or whatever. And they say, well, okay, I can take my retirement and just go over there. Whereas in the past, it was, I've got a, great retirement plan here, and I'm staying here.
I heard the sheriff mention that, by the way.
It is a big factor, I think.
Well, and the city and other sheriff's departments takes a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Great.
We've had deputies leave our sheriff's department and be in a city patrol car and never missed a shift.
That's right.
But the opposite side is all those counties that are now tracking those people are financially in trouble. Because we made the cut in 2000 or 2001 that all new employees went to defined contribution, and now they're sitting on some huge,
Well,
we think we got a liability thing that we got to work out of.
The city
You can
just
see- you
kind
can
of
see the city
going
and
forward
everyone
for their
else.
their clerk, or technical, whatever
Yeah.
the non-union folks, they reduced their defined benefit multiplier going forward for existing employees. I don't know if you caught
Wow.
that.
Where was
That
this
was
at?
just this past month. Which is, I don't know that anybody else in the state has done it.
See, technically, you can only do that from that date going forward. It's a plan
Correct.
within a plan.
Correct.
All the years you
You can't
served,
cut
you
somebody's
get that
earned
rate.
benefit.
Moving forward, from this date going forward, you get a different rate, so it's a blended plan when they retire.
But, time will tell what that does to the city's organization.
Yeah, they could start losing people.
We haven't heard from Chris.
I'm biting my tongue.
I'm listening.
I'm
I
sorry,
am
Chris,
biting
I
my
didn't know you were trying.
No, I wasn't trying to talk.
Okay, well, I'm going to move us on then, if that's
Sorry for the
okay.
rambling.
That's okay, it was a good discussion. At the top of this blueprint, we've got shared vision and our mission, and those were the
Maybe.
exact items from your last plan, you wanted to retain them, so I made no changes. I would like permission from you to do some editing on the shared vision statement. It has some really long sentences, and I think grammatically could bear with just a little editor's touch without changing the real content there. So if you're okay with that, I would like to do that for you. I just don't think it reads as smoothly as it could, and I don't think it would take much, but I'd probably just put another period in there someplace and create more than a couple of long sentences. So if you're all okay with that.
Would you wordsmith that a little bit better?
I-
Maybe
if-
shorten
yeah,
it?
if you're okay with that, I don't want to tweak it too much unless you're comfortable with that. But I feel like it just doesn't read well. As I looked at it with new eyes over the last few weeks, and I'd like your permission to do that, if that's okay.
Usually a vision statement's a little more shorter and concise, isn't it?
Well, what we're trying to do is paint a picture of what you'd like to see here. So it doesn't have to be short and concise. From my perspective, what I want it to do for you is you all have a shared vision. So it's clear enough that you all say, yeah, that's what we're trying to make happen here.
Would you be better off to put this into bullet points rather than into a sentence or a paragraph?
Whatever, I've done it
I
every
don't know
way,
what would
so
make
I can
more
do
sense.
whatever you please, but I would.
I like the vision statement to be a statement, personally,
The mission is, but I'm not sure a vision
The
statement.
vision, the shared
Could
vision?
I think the vision is a statement, too. I don't think it's an outline.
Okay.
Okay. whatever.
I'll keep it as a statement
Okay.
then, if everyone's okay, but just do some editing. Everything will be marked draft.
Okay.
I'll show you what I did. I'll be transparent. Great. So I added in here then, based on all of our stuff, how you're going to focus your attention for the next 3 years. So underneath mission, we have strategic focus. And your focus is, as I understand it from the last meeting, is you're going to support county initiatives that improve quality of life and the economic health of the region. And that support will include things such as identifying the resources that are needed. So where will the money come from? What kind of financial resources? What kind of people do we need to join us in our work? Removing any barriers to success, or helping to remove those barriers, working with the county administrator and the management team and other partners. Defining customer service standards so that everyone has a shared, agreed upon definition of what it means to deliver a certain level of service to the public. Educating the public about your good work, about what's going on, about the benefits that they're receiving, and advocating for some priority initiatives, which some of them might not be, they may be things that need a sell. You know, there might be a sales job there for you to do. And so that is where your attention is going to be focused.
Let me ask you a question. To me, our strategic focus is twofold. It's internal and external.
Yes.
So when you try to describe strategic focus, can we say it in two different settings? Internal and external?
Yeah, we can.
Because there are...
Yeah. You can do whatever you like, yeah.
To me, it would be cleaner if that was the way it was.
And this is really, in a lot of ways, because of the way that you've gone through planning, because the departments have developed their plans, and you're working now to support those plans. This is sort of a bottom-up planning process in a way. And so it is a little internally focused in a lot of respects. And because you have a lot of other things you want to see happen.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff we're working on internally that we've already discussed, and things we want to accomplish in a broader range internally, but there are some other external things that the Board of Commissioners is responsible for and that we need to accomplish as well, that have really nothing to do with the internal setting of the employees that, you know, are treated and equity and everything else. So.
And Larry, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's where I think this plan so far is a little light.
Okay.
Is where externally,
well, that's what I was.
What else? What is it that really needs your attention and uniquely needs you to drive over the next?
So, when we put up all our ideas on the board, and you tried to arrange those, and
yeah,
it seems that we had a bunch of items out there that were listed that were pretty much that could have been in the external category.
I put everything in
we got to figure out how to work with the state to do roads, and we need to figure out how to financially secure the septic street fund. We got to figure out all this other external stuff.
I think the whole statement advocating for priority initiatives is where we deal with the external things.
And when we get to
I
that,
think that's where we
Larry,
deal with the external things. We help to encourage, other organizations, other people. We remove some of the barriers to allow them to do some of these things, But I think the priority initiatives, sure, there's going to be a number of them that are internally that we have control over. But the number that we don't have control over is at least as large as the ones that we do. But the fact that we advocate for those initiatives is important.
Yeah.
And I think that's, we always talk about the fact that the community doesn't understand what the county does. And I think this is our opportunity to do that. And I certainly don't have all the answers of how to do it, but the fact is that we need to put an emphasis on the fact that we can help to encourage other things to happen in our community. And that's what that advocating for priority initiatives is to me. That's the external stuff that we, in fact, do not have the ability to do ourselves.
but I can easily rewrite this focus so that it reflects the internal and external focus.
That would look cleaner too.
And it'll be a little cleaner there, yeah.
Okay.
And so I'll do that. As we look then in the 7 boxes across the middle section, you'll see we've got goals and strategies. And to respond to Larry's question about all the stuff we had on the board, in the big document, you'll see in Appendix 10, everything is listed that we had on the flip chart sheets. And so I try to take all those items and put them someplace in this document. They might not all be under strategy. They might fall into impact. So I think someone was talking, I'm sorry, I should remember, I should have watched the tape. Someone was talking about clean water last time, and so clean water I put in the impact area. I put clean and healthy environment in the impact area. So there's not a strategy for cleaning the water. That would be an area that you might support other initiatives in the region focused on the watershed or clean water. And so that wouldn't necessarily be an area that you here as a group of commissioners would be driving that initiative. So I tried to capture everything someplace.
All right. I just want to clarify item 5, the strategic goal. I guess there's two viewpoints. There was, I guess, my viewpoint and then the Sunny viewpoint. And I guess I need your help on that. It seems like the strategic plan under number 5 would be the overall arch of, we want Grand Traverse County to be one of the top considered employers of the county. You know, we want the reputation behind it. We want to be known as a good employer, a fair employer, reasonably, fair in compensation, et cetera, et cetera. This is where you should, if you're going to apply for a job, you go to Grand Traverse County. We're one of the top ones in the county you should be looking at, okay? And then you would have some subsections below that, like that your internal equities, as Dave put it, is always in order or whatever, that, we're working towards fairness and internal equity and, fairness in compensation and benefits and salary and work environment, the kind of work environment that we have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know.
So let's start with number 5. Because we're going to work on all of these, but it's a good place to start since we've been talking about it so much. I can change that goal into truly a goal statement. So get rid of the verb and say, Grand Traverse County is going to be viewed as a fair and equitable employer, have a positive reputation, attract employees. I can state that as a goal statement and get rid of the develop our people and increase our human resources. And does that, and then we can list all your strategies underneath it.
And then the strategy is to launch a human resource plan for staffing model. If that makes sense.
Yep, it does to me.
I'm not sure I agree with the bottom statement. I think we have the quality of the people already, and that's somewhat, when you make that statement in there, you're trying to tell your employees that they're not capable of handling what your needs are. And I think we've got an excellent staff in the human resources need. And I think if we start saying we're going to have to hire an outside person for technical expertise, you're saying that they don't have it.
We had
Well, I
this
do think we
discussion
do.
about both the technology
No, I'm
area and the human resources area. Go ahead, Christine, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I
go
didn't mean to
ahead, go
interrupt
for it.
She stepped out of the room on
I-
the first goal, on that changed description, if you could give it to her.
Yeah, if you would,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're so sneaky, I didn't even
I
see you
know,
read.
oh,
We're
And I'm
gonna-
in red.
We're gonna rewrite the goals. So we're gonna get rid of the verbs and make them more goal statements. And so, starting with number 5, we're just starting out of order. We're gonna start with number
All right.
5. We changed the wording to be Grand Traverse County is viewed as a fair and equitable employer attracting high-level talent to work here, something like that. So I'll work on the wording a little bit.
Well,
but-
quite,
And then one of the strategies would be the human resource staffing plan underneath that.
quite
Yeah.
honestly, I think what Mr. Benda said is exactly correct. On the lower end, like secretarial, et cetera, for instance, Commission on Aging, if you have a homemaker aide, if we have a homemaker aide position open on Commission on Aging, Georgia will get 100 to 150 applications. On the top level, and I'm going to pick on Dean since he's here, Dean could walk out the door tomorrow and double his salary. And I happen to know this is a fact because my nephew has Dean's talents and works in Chicago and makes over twice what Dean does. So the discrepancy in wages really is at the top, not at the bottom.
And that's what we found when we done the studies, that everybody had a fit because we
And-
were going to spend the money and it was only going to go to a few people.
And to touch upon what you just said, Herb, looking at hiring technical expertise, I don't think Don Sheehan would be insulted if we hired technical expertise. I think he's so busy keeping what we've got running that he'd probably welcome somebody to come in and say, and do, a department by department, perhaps upgrade plan for technology. I don't think Don would find that insulting at all. I mean, his
I
days
think
are
that was the
full.
discussion that we had.
So-
It wasn't that the people didn't have the ability here.
It's the
It's just
time.
the time.
They don't have the
Really
time.
bringing in the extra resources.
See, I was looking at this in our human resources arena, not in our technology arena. I think in our human resources, we have an excellent staff there and probably can get the job done. If they can't, then they should come to us and tell us that we need to bring somebody outside. I don't think we should be telling them that we don't think they have the tools to be able to handle human resources. When you talk about Don Sheehan and technology, very definitely, that's an arena that we may not have enough staff or the time to be able to get that done.
Yeah.
When we saw that technology was our number one problem, when we had all these different department heads come in, that's a whole different animal than human resources. My only focus was the human resources,
Yeah.
was not.
Would it help if, on that last point under key strategies for that strategic goal, if it was, instead of saying human resources, workforce?
Workforce planning?
Yes. Or workforce,
I think the one
support the
thing,
workforce.
the one thing that we heard very loud and very apparent when we went through this, 2006, when we did the past study, is what we heard of without question was people from within our organization and from outside of the organization, that the first thing they said is, well, the HR director completed that study, and the first thing it tells you is that she should get paid more money. So I think the idea of having a fresh set of eyes look at it helps you. Sometimes we all get caught up with, the other thing is we get involved with individuals and personalities. And when you hire someone from outside, you take that part of it out.
So it's really viewed as totally objective, especially if they're advocating for increasing salaries and...
Yeah, I really think you're going to have to do this from outside. I really do.
Dan first.
Okay, I agree with that. I think having an outside, I know in my own business, we've gotten myopic at times, and you bring in a new person to look at it anew, and it's not like I'm hiring them full-time, but they get us to think differently and to work better differently. We're going to be dealing with, we've got $1 million structural deficit, we've got Obamacare coming, we've got a flat tax base, we have union talks, we've got, 40 million in unfunded pension. These are tough things to face, and we're talking about maybe giving everybody a raise. I think I personally don't have the boots on to make those decisions. I'd like some out. If you guys can do that, and you can convince me you can do that, I'll go with it. But I think getting some outside help on these big, tough questions would be helpful.
Charlie, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, I think when we talked, the last meeting we had with respect to HR, there was some feeling, I believe, that there are certain things HR can do well internally, but there are other issues that maybe we would need some outside help on. One is this contractual thing, I agree 100%. It seems like their HR is associated with the employees. Somehow the public and their equity has to be brought into this. Maybe an outside individual could do that, make the public feel like they're being represented too, rather than just all internal.
Even if they said the exact same thing that your own internal team would say, having just that review, that external review might be useful.
Well, if you can, I'm just pretending here, but if you pay somebody $50,000 and they save you $1 million, it's worth it. And that's what I'm talking about. It's not that Mr. Benda can't do it or Jen can't do it, but sometimes just that outside look helps. That's what I'm saying, Herb.
Yeah, my only thing about that is that you hire the people, you give them the tools, and you let them do the job. If they come to you and say, we can't meet this particular need and we'd like to have you let us be able to contract out for that services, I like the idea of it coming from the employees to us rather than from us into the employees. That's my only comment on this.
Okay, so then, I agree with that, but we got to give our people true goals. I mean, we're gonna crunch numbers here finally. We got to say to them, you got to provide this service for X number of dollars. And they come back and say we can't do it, then maybe we need some outside help. Okay?
And we have to be willing to support that.
And this
Chris?
says, and this does say support. It
Yeah.
doesn't say lead
Right.
workforce planning. So it's, where you need the support. Christine?
Chris?
Back to Dean. You get so, I know, you're just sitting there,
In his own business.
You're like the,
but you get
Like the case
you get an
study.
employee like Dean, and I happen to know, as I drive and walk or bike by the building, I know where his office is. And I can see how many evenings that he is here late, if I happen to be going by, or mornings. And let me tell you, when when Dennis had left and Dave had not been hired, Dean's light was on all the time. You get somebody like Dean who who will not ask for outside help in his department, he will just come in and he'll put in 12-hour days.
Jen did the same thing, yeah.
And Jen did the same thing. So, I absolutely agree with Dr. Lathrop that sometimes we need to step in and say, let's get an outside eye on this.
Larry, you were going to make a comment?
And I know I just want to make, as we go through these goal statements, if we're going to strategically go one by one, I'd rather have the goal statement in a broader sense, in a different defining sense, like the first one, increase financial stability and access to capital. Well, we already other than the issue of filling a hole, we are considered, we have a AA bond rating. We're considered one of the more financially strong counties in the state. We got strong fund balances. We don't have the inability to go out and get capital and bond. So as we go through these strategic goals, I think we need to rephrase these goals to the board's wishes. But the first goal, I guess I don't agree. We need to increase
Do we wanna-
our financial stability and access to
do we
capital.
want to
So
finish up on
let's-
human resources
Let's finish the
first?
other one first.
I understand, but I'm
Yeah.
just giving you an example as we
Yeah.
go through
Yeah.
each one of these, as we address each one of these.
You can change every
We need
single one.
to figure out
Yeah.
what's the best statement on the top,
Yeah.
because it doesn't really reflect, I think, the goal.
Right, yeah. So we're going to focus on this human resources area
Right.
first, then we can move.
So, we got the broader statement,
We've got a broader
we
statement.
have the drill down.
The question here is, under the strategies, we've got to launch a human resources plan, to complete the compensation and benefits review, and to hire outside assistance, technical expertise to support workforce planning.
Workforce plan.
I changed human resources to workforce, make it a little broader, not so specific. Human resources does kind of connote a specific area of
guess-
stuff.
I think just when needed.
That's right,
Plenty as needed.
That's right.
I think
As
just as
needed,
needed.
okay.
Yeah, just as needed.
Do you want, is there any other strategies
Would you?
that we want to include in here that you think would help improve employee morale, human resources?
The only question I have that is whether or not I would use as needed or as requested.
Do you think that, you know, this is a real sensitive area
I think we
that people
determined
might
needed.
not want to give up internal control over?
I think
You may want to.
I think we need to be in the position of sucking it up and say, this is what we need to do.
Yes,
I think it has to be needed.
Okay.
Because for one thing, you could get requests that you simply aren't prepared to do, and if you say, we'll do it as requested, then, well, you did it for so-and-so, but you won't do it for my department. So we don't want to do that. I think and I don't know whether it becomes a strategy or if it's an impact, but I think the biggest problem at the bottom of this is we have to be able to implement this plan when we do it.
We're going to talk
We
about
have
that,
to
yeah.
figure out how we're going to implement this, because these are going to cost dollars, and they're
Yeah.
going to cost real dollars.
Yeah.
So if we're going to go through the process and determine, whether people are compensated properly or not, we have to be prepared to suck it up and pay the bill if that's what is determined we have to do. And that's where we lost out the last time. We were not prepared to spend the money when we got the information that said, this is what you have to do. And I think we have to make a commitment as a board that if we do this, we are going to implement this study.
We didn't have enough money.
So let's continue the discussion here.
Whether
To
we do it
implement
in a
this.
phase thing or whatever, but we have to create an implementation plan.
Okay, so to implement this category 5, this goal 5, you need to set a budget, right? Would you have a team?
I'll just help you with this.
Would you establish a team to work on this?
Well, here's what we did last time, is that,
Okay.
when we did the study, revenues were on a downward trend. We told the staff that, as long as revenues were on a downward trend, we were going to hold on the implementation until revenue stabilized. It seemed like a rational approach. And then then the board got into discussion of how we were going to implement. At one point in time, the revenues were going to stabilize. And the board's delivery and discussion over a long period of time was that we were going, so you're going to have to help me with this, we were going to implement those changes over a segment of years. It wasn't going to be all in one budget year.
Over a 3-year plan.
I think we argued 5 and we settled on 3. So, so we already, as a previous board, the board had decided that any implementation that had a significant financial impact would be budgeted over a 3-year period.
I might have misunderstood what Sonny's comment was. What I was thinking of is even a step earlier. So how to implement conducting the wage and compensation
for the
study,
I took his comment farther.
Yeah, you took it farther, and I'm thinking...
Mine was, when he said that was, you got all these, you establish a goal statement, and then you have strategies. My thing was, if these strategies are all high priorities, how are we going to implement each one of these?
You're definitely going to have to...
Not necessarily this one, but all of them that
Yeah.
we're going to identify. That's what I got out of Sonny's deal, is that, we just can't let it sit on a shelf if we got it identified as a priority and we need to get it done.
I guess I want to just kind of give you my perspective on this as far as implementation. You're here to decide whether you want to, what your most important thing is. We want to, you didn't say we want to dismantle our workforce, we want to insult our employees. You said we want to treat them fairly, we want to give them equitably. We've got some strategies for trying to, to make that happen. And you're going to identify that these are the kind of things you want to do, and you're going to go point by point here, and you might add some other things. I don't know what else you're going to do, but you're going to identify some things that you'd like to get done. And you're going to want quality, a level of service that you're providing because about 70% of what you do is mandated by the state of Michigan. The only way you can affect that number is changing the wages or benefits of the employees that are providing those services. So they're either going to go up or they're going to go down. And then another piece, the other 30% is completely spent every year. I mean, you've got it in the sheriff, most of it's in the sheriff's department, and then you've got MSU Extension, and you've got parks, and you've got a few other places where you have little amounts, but nothing compared to what you're spending in the sheriff's department. And so the question becomes, how do you divide up your resources from that point? And where are you going to slice this so that you can do big things that you want to get done in our community? And that's what our focus is to identify what level of service. If we don't care about the quality of service that is being provided in the Register of Deeds and how long a title company has to wait for a deed to clear, then we can cut the Register of Deeds office to 2 people and let them handle it the best they can. But if we want them to, produce it and get it out in a day, well, 4 people is probably the minimum you can have there. So that's mandated and you can't cut it and it generates, revenue, but you got to look somewhere else if you want to change and the only way you can affect that number is wages and benefits. Because, we're doing everything we can on lights and copiers and, the cost of things that it takes to run a department like that. We're doing, daily, we're looking for better ways to do that, so.
That gets back to a budget discussion.
It's a budget
You simply have to look at every single service you're providing, how much that service is costing, and how many people are being affected by it.
Right.
And we've never truly taken the time to draw a budget based on all of that information. I think we do a reasonable job about it, but we've never really sat down with all of our departments and said, look, I want a list of every service you provide, and we'll try to evaluate what that cost is. But equally as important, I need to know how many people are benefiting from that service.
But you've been on the board how long?
16 years.
16 years. You've never looked at MSU Extension and asked them what they're doing over there?
Oh, yeah, we have.
Oh, absolutely you have.
Annually.
You've asked them 20 times
Yeah, but
in
we
16
never really
years.
get as good an answer as we probably should get.
Yeah, but they give you an answer, and you start to see that, some of the things that they're doing with that money is good things in our community, and it's really difficult to cut those things.
Yeah, it's difficult to cut good things in our community, but yet we're still going to have to get to a point that we do it.
That's true. So how are you gonna?
Or raise revenues.
But what they bring in,
Well, we could save
a
that for a
lot more
budget
than what it
discussion.
costs us.
So, under human resources, are there any strategies missing? Do we need to strengthen internal communication with employees? Is there anything else that needs to happen there?
Well, under human resources, people don't just work for money and benefits. And so what can we do that doesn't cost a lot of money, that makes people happy to work here? I know that I have people that work for me, they love their job. They love working for Dr. Hartman and me. It's kind of like a little family. So yes, they can go somewhere else, but they choose to stay there for non-monetary reasons. What can we do in the county to bless people so they want to work for us, and it isn't just money? That should be on there, I think.
So is
Happy
that,
hour on Fridays.
Pardon?
Happy hour on Friday.
Well, the breakfast we had the other day, I bonded with several of the employees, and I know that when we went out, Charlie and I went out, we heard a lot of people say, commissioners are unapproachable. Maybe each of us can take a department and become friends with a department.
We did that.
And pardon? We already did that?
Yeah, we had what was called
Department
department liaisons, and the problem here's where the issue lied, is that when you got into the fairness issue, equity issue that confronted human services, that employee and the department head, and they were not happy with the result, they dragged the liaison commissioner in and laid them out with all their frustrations and asked them to solve it on their behalf. And we have to understand, and then it got into a situation where it put us in a very uncomfortable position because we don't micromanage and get involved with staff members. And we do not get involved in the day-to-day activities of managing people. We are a policy budget-making board. And although we do have interaction with departments and staff members when they come and do presentations, or we might see them on the street, or if we're going through a department and saying hi, or if we need certain information we're stopping in for, or whatever, or a quick question, you have that line of hi and, approachability, but you can't take it to the level of, I can't solve your personnel issue.
That's right.
And that's where it all ended.
It got
So
to
we
that-
just kind of like,
It got to that point.
it got to that point, so we just sort of dissolved the whole thing.
Well,
kinda let
he
it soft
kids
away.
around and says a cocktail party. I don't think that necessarily has to happen, but maybe things like that.
Christine, it looks like you were trying
Worked for me.
to say something.
There are things that the county can do to make this a more desirable place to work, but in all reality, it will probably, you would have to renegotiate your union contracts. And I can name a couple of things right now. I mean, Shell, when I worked at Shell, we were non-union. We were permitted to buy vacation every year. You would select the amount of days that you wanted before the new year began, and that amount would be deducted, kind of like a health savings account is now for employees. That would be deducted from your pay every 2 weeks, and you could take an additional 1, 2, 3, or 4 days of vacation that you purchased with your own money. You were limited, your department had to say, yeah, you could take that particular Friday off. But that would probably have to be negotiated in a union contract. We were permitted, depending upon what department you were in, what your job was, to work a 9/80 schedule. In other words, you would work 9 hours every day, and then every other week you'd get an extra day off. We were flexible. You could, maybe you only wanted to work a 9/80 for the summer months. Maybe you only wanted to work a 9/80, but, the departments were staffed.
Yeah.
There are many things that you can do, but in all reality, you would probably have to go into your union contracts and renegotiate them.
Well, it strikes me too that this is an area where the employees should help to identify what makes a higher quality, more satisfactory workplace. We could come up with all kinds of ideas, and maybe they would say, yeah, it's great, maybe they wouldn't. So, here, you put that back to an employee team.
Well, we have
to
an
work
employee
on.
safety team, we have an employee recognition team,
Yeah.
and they are
Yeah.
fairly active.
So,
They truly are.
so just allowing them to do their,
One of the things that we
Yeah.
also have to remember when we start talking about, extra days off, these kind of things, there are many of our departments that are a 24/365 project, and we have to remember that. We don't have the options in the sheriff's department or central dispatch that we would have, in the clerk's office. It's Bonnie's turn to get picked on instead of Dean, But the fact is, she has more flexibility to move some of her people around than we do in central dispatch. We just simply don't have the ability.
But my point is, the departments that do have that flexibility, why shouldn't they have that
Well, and
flexibility?
They do have the option to purchase additional time. They don't have to purchase it. They basically can take time off without pay. And that's allowable by the department head. And it's in, if not all the union contracts, most of them.
Most of them.
And so there are some things, I don't think that we're doing many things wrong here
No, I don't think so either.
in trying to make our employees, give them a good place to work. I think that there's two big sticking points. One is, I've already mentioned, the equity piece. the other thing is, they like to be recognized for their efforts. It's really easy, as a policy board, you are the ultimate employer of all these employees, and when somebody says something negative about something that's been done in a department or whatever, and it goes out over this microphone, it has a really damaging effect. And, as a policy board, you got to be really careful about what you say about the efforts of our employees. And those kind of comments, offhand comments, and I'm not accusing anyone on this board of saying any of those, but it has been done in the past, and I've heard about it. When I talked to all the employees when I first walked in the door, that was one of the things I heard, was that there were, things said, usually off the cuff. Our employees are lucky to have a job. Our employees are, those kind of remarks are not positive, esteem-building remarks. So that's what I would say. Those are the two areas that we have to work on. We have to make sure we don't insult our employees when they, even if they're not doing a great job, we have to find ways to do it behind the scenes rather than on camera.
So the first one is don't insult them, and the second point is?
Well, let's get some internal equity established.
What does that mean, internal equity?
Okay, so we've got an employee that there's 2 positions been cut out of the department, and let's look at the Parks Department, for example. They had a $450,000 budget a couple years back. Now they're down to a $170,000 general fund appropriation. So the people who are there are doing a lot more. They're scrambling every day to make sure that they get everything done. And and everybody wants to be heard, right? If you've got something to say, you would like somebody to listen to you. And what the board's message to all the employees has been, and this is what I heard on the way in, I don't want to hear it, is what I've heard from our employees. I don't want to hear it. We're not giving any reclassifications. I know you got problems. Everybody's got problems. We don't want to hear it. That's the internal equity problem, because they look at what they're doing, they look at what was done by the 5 people that used to be there, and 2 people are doing all that work now, and they were doing it at a higher level of pay because there's more responsibility, more, impact upon the county if there's an error or an inaccuracy, and they're responsible for all those things. And when you go through a point system for these jobs, you say, okay, this person has so many points, and that person has so many points because their responsibility levels are different. This person should be paid more. The problem is that we've artificially held those no changes. That's what we've said. No changes, and don't tell me about it. And then when they say something about it, it's, don't whine. So that's what we've got to stop doing, is my opinion. Just, and I don't think any member of this board feels like, any of those things, but that's the perception that we have to change.
Well,
Not that you're doing that.
Classification studies every time it's been discussed.
But those things had been done in the past, and like you said, it was probably because of the public-private sector discussion that was going on a few years back.
Okay.
Pam, I think we've spent probably
I know we have.
We could have a
Thank
session
you.
on each one of
Thank
these
you.
goals, the way we're going.
Yeah, let's see if we can tackle one more before we take a break. And let's go to the financial one, the first one. And Larry, you had said that you'd like to change the language of that goal because you really are financially stable. So is it maintain
Yeah, continue
financial?
to be a financially strong, stable government with something capital.
Continued access. something
You know,
like
I
that.
I want to say something like,
No matter how you say it, we're doing it.
somehow get to the point where we're maintaining the recommended levels of our capital based on Standard & Poor's guidelines or whatever, I don't know, CPA
Okay.
guidelines or audit guidelines.
continue to maintain our financial stability.
Yep.
And that could be just
Continue.
as simple.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Do we want to talk about the capital at all?
No.
Or do we just preserve the capital?
Well, it sounded like you had a lot of capital needs with technology and infrastructure, and so that was an area of concern. So
Well, you got two-
it might be worth emphasizing.
Capital has 2 definitions to me. One is the fund balance, and other capital is money you got to spend on infrastructure improvements. So,
Okay, well, I
You
was
gotta-
viewing it as investment
you got-
capital into.
so you got
Yeah.
to make sure when you get in there,
Taxes.
you redefine that.
But the other capital is your employees.
Sorry, yeah. That's your asset, so.
That's an asset, I'm not sure that
Okay,
it's capital.
Christine?
I would like to touch upon your first key strategy here, where it says, identify a mutually agreed-upon level of customer service for county services. I think we all probably can agree that a level of customer service would be the county provides, all departments provide accurate information to the public, period.
I like
I
that.
think that's a minimum standard.
Timely and accurate information to the public.
Accurate information.
Timely and accurate.
The other thing that I wanted to mention regarding level of customer service is something Sonny touched upon. I think we need to ask the Peter Drucker question. If we weren't doing this today, would we start? And let's take a look at what we're doing, and I understand that if we, as was talked about in one of our last budget sessions, if we decided we were no longer going to fund MSU, the 4-H program, we're going to get a load of people in here that are 4-Hers. If we decided that we were going to close the pool before the YMCA pool opens, we would get 200 swimmers in here. I mean, it depends on what you do, but I think we need to take a look at the services we provide and ask ourselves whether or not we want to continue or should be continuing to provide them. And I will give you an example of a service that was discontinued, and that is foot care at Commission on Aging. The private sector stepped up, and they are now providing, foot care services, filling that gap. We need to take a look at what we're doing. Sonny has said it umpteen times, and I agree with him. Mark your calendar, Mr. Wheelock.
For foot
So-
services, we already have our guy.
So Chris is advocating that we add in a strategy here where we review.
And it's
some
going to,
team reviews.
and we have to understand that we are going to make some people unhappy. It's going to happen.
I think that question of if we didn't have it today, this service, would we institute it and provide it? That's a great template to put on this, and it's going to take courage to do that.
It is.
To do it. I mean, if these other things I just said about,
And I think we should do it before we begin our budget discussions. So the administrator and
We
the finance
will,
director need to have some direction.
We'll work on putting together a mandated versus non-mandated analysis for you, show you what services and how much is being spent in each of those areas. You're going to find out that most of your money is being spent in the sheriff's department. And then, the courts, can't do much about that.
True.
You can talk about their levels of service and whether a position, one position too many or too few. But, you've been debating these year after year after year after year, and they're pretty tight. I mean, most of the county departments are pretty tight, the way they're set up. So it's whole programs, if you really want to.
This county board
It
has
is.
done an excellent job of maintaining a really conservative budget.
I would
think-
say
I
that
think
that is
that's
true.
absolutely a
Absolutely
fact. The problem is, we're at a point now where in order to cut the type of money that we're talking about, we simply have to eliminate whole programs. You can't recycle enough paper clips to cut $1 million. You just simply can't. So you're going to have to make tough decisions about what it is you're going to no longer do. It's not a matter of we're going to expand or we're going to cut back services. We've cut some of our services as far as we can go. If we cut them anymore, we might as well eliminate it.
And if, as Commissioner Inman wants to do, appropriately compensate people, that money has to come from somewhere.
That's another hole.
So do I have here support to add or maybe refine the first strategy here to read that we'd review all services that we provide, which ones are mandated, which ones aren't, and then for the unmandated, should we continue it? What other options are out there? Would we do it if we weren't doing it right now? Would we start it up today? What's the level of need? Ask all those questions. Should it be discontinued? And then I would add in, and then what's the level of service that should be provided for these things? I mean, you know, does it have to be 24-hour response time? Can it be 48 hours for some things? Can there be a waiting list? You know, what can you live with?
Well, one of the challenges of a governing board that isn't here every day, working with staff, working with every department every day, involved with the programs and services every day, I
I don't think this is
probably
a,
am not in a position to make that judgment
I don't think this
call.
is a, when we talk about this is a team that includes
I would,
the management team.
Yeah,
So there's a, it's a
I would have to
integrated
place
team.
that challenge on administration to filter down to his team, and the team goes down to the department heads, and they come back with their review and analysis of, are we getting the best bang for our buck for what we're doing, you know, in these programs and services, or is there a better way of handling it or doing it, and then coming back with recommendations. I mean,
But you can't answer the
I
question
can't-
of,
I
should
can't.
we provide foot care services to the seniors? If the answer to that is yes, then the question is, you know, begs the question that the Commission on Aging said, which was, can't we do this in the private sector? Why is the public sector doing this?
Right.
So those are policy questions that only the board can decide on.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to make a decision, you're going to make a decision to discontinue services to the constituents, you damn well better have this board make that decision.
I agree.
I'm not dumping that on staff.
No. I'm
I
talking
agree.
about the information that is filtered to us.
Well,
We need
but
that information from them.
We need the
Yeah.
information from
We
them,
need
no
to-
question.
We need to work on it
But the
together.
decision-
Yeah,
the
there's no way.
decision is ours.
No, I'm not asking them to make the decision. I'm just saying that they're going to have to, they're going to have to drill down for us and bring back that information. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to make a judgment.
I understand.
Dan?
Well, we talked about mandated services and non-mandated services. I know that some services are mandated, but what isn't mandated is the level of service. So we need to look at that too. I'm not saying change it, I'm saying look at it.
Look at it and see if there's
Yeah.
some opportunities there.
Yeah.
There may be some things that there may be some places where there's
But
opportunities.
also,
yeah.
I will tell you that when you start looking at this, you have conflicting strategic goals. When your goal says that we're going to provide the best quality services for our community that we can afford, and the other goal is the mandated services, we're going to say we're only going to provide this level of service, all of a sudden you conflict with the two different strategies.
I don't disagree with that.
And so it's a real difficult balance there to figure out when you state this goal and you tell administration you want to do this, and then you're telling the administration you want to cut those services down a little bit, and you're going to make a conflict. So I think you have to start looking at balancing all these goals too when you do that.
That's why the policy has to be set by
Right.
you folks, so that.
Doesn't hurt to look.
Well,
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's important to look.
Okay.
you know, part of, and I've learned this, I guess, throughout the years, is part of having a 3-year strategic planning and then a drill down 1 year that we've always used, is that the world changes on us monthly,
That's right.
okay?
That's right.
And sometimes we have to say, this is the most important thing we're going to work on this year, and all of a sudden, 3 things flow through that we've got to put everything else on hold, back that up, work on this stuff here, and try to figure out what we're going to do. Now, so, you know, the best strategic plan, you know, may or may not be able to be implemented based on what's going to hit us going through the following year.
What I would,
Now, Dick, I'll just say this for a
Sure.
point, is that right now, the focus and discussion is, we're looking at $1 million hole, we got to figure out how to fix it. And we've got a bunch of ideas to push the button, okay? We might be able to come back, and we might have some solutions that the administrator might have to fill that hole, so we don't have to deal with these panic button issues.
right.
You know, the state could redo our revenue sharing, and we could get back to, we were getting $1.5 million, now we might get $1 million or $1.2 million. That might start in 2014, I don't know. We might bond out our unfunded portion of our defined benefit program, put it on a 20-year M. That would free up $1 million. We might want to enhance our co-pays for our health care insurance or take more risk in the pool. Drop another $500,000 or $1 million. I mean, there are a lot of things out there that Dave could figure out or staff could bring back recommendations that as we talk about these strategies, and part of it is financial in nature, we want to be the best, but maybe we're not going to be the best because we got this hole. Maybe that hole could be filled and we can go back to being the best.
This plan, what I'm hoping that will stay consistent for 3 years is your focus, your vision, your mission, and the key goal areas.
We can't stay focused for 90 minutes.
But the strategies underneath them, next week, an opportunity may come up that you want to see.
Well, who'd have thought about 911? We had to spend it.
So you have to really feel the flexibility of adjusting the strategies as you need to, and you should see it as a rolling strategic plan. Anything else with financial?
I just want to say, we can have, and we always have had plans like this, but we end up, and you know it as well as I do, we end up being reactionary to what the real world is. This is just a plan.
It's a living document.
Yep.
We have
It's a
to
living
assume that
We still have
it's
to react to
it's
what the reality
fluctual.
is.
We also have, under the financial goal here, is to collaborate with other governmental units, so that whether there's places to work together, to share resources, to address common needs, that might, and I also put in organizations, that might include Grand Vision, that might include lots of other folks that are doing things. And then there was a specific item called strengthen grant writing capabilities. And so those are what I have here. Is there anything else under financial that you, Dean and Dave a bit here and see too, if there's anything you think?
I really think it's important that we put in there that our 3-year financial projection is a key strategy on how we're going to continue doing this. And that's what we're going to do, and we need to put it in the plan.
You want a 3-year budget, you're saying?
Yeah, if it's not in the
3-year
plan,
budget.
then he
Okay.
shouldn't be working on it.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about the 3-year budget because Dave said, we gotta have, not only one of the pluses in his initial interview was that he developed his own 3-year plan for Midland County that they used, a 3-year budget plan, but it also assisted them in, it tied to their capital improvement plan. So if they knew that they had to replace roofs and windows and everything else, that they could build it within the 3-year plan, rather than trying to address it year by year.
Right.
So, I'd like to see us go with a 3-year plan as a model.
We've
and then
got it
just-
in-house, we're playing with it right now.
And then have the 1 year as the actual.
But I just wanted as part of this
Yeah, and I like that idea.
key strategy.
Oh, and the beauty of it is,
how you're going to get there.
when you say,
where you're gonna
we
get
want to do something different, we want to add something, you can put it right, you can say, okay, well, that's going to add $50,000 this year, and 55 next year, and 60 the following year, and you can see what it does to your balance.
The other thing that I think it's important that not only these are goals for us and our plans, but it also tells the community what we're working on, but it also tells the employees what we want them to work on. So this is kind of a 3-pronged approach when you start looking at these plans as to who it's going to affect, and that's what we're working on.
I have no problem with putting the 3-year budget in as a strategy, as long as we include the capital improvement in it.
It will be.
Because the capital has to be part of that plan.
Okay.
Dan?
I put them both in.
I think in
Yeah.
every one of these categories, we need to be able to, on a yearly basis, assess in some type of number, not just in a statement, how well we have performed. That's one of the things you look at 3 years ago, what this board said they were going to do. Not this board, that board. And I can't look at it and say, well, God, they did the things they said they're going to do. We need to, if we're going to have these goals, we need to have a way to evaluate ourselves, and I mean a number, not just an opinion, of how well we're doing.
Well, let me address that. And I've done it for 28 years in the banking business. You set up a goal for individuals in the bank and everything else, you monitor it monthly, And there are external factors that will affect your ability to make your goal. Okay? Assessed values plummeting, tax tribunal disputes, busted wall in a septic treatment plant, busted dams and people being flooded, county spending money on emergency management that wasn't expected. Okay, so there are things that occur externally and sometimes internally, like turnover, all right? So you can't put a hard number on whether we failed or whether we succeeded in a goal by saying, did we accomplish it or didn't we accomplish it? What you need to do is say, okay, here's our goal. And at the end of the year, you say, here's the goal, what happened? Here are the things we accomplished, here are the things we didn't accomplish. Here are the things that hit us through the year that stopped us from accomplishing the other items. But what we did to work on the items that we got hit with, we did very well with. Okay? So you got to have that parameter of discussion. It can't be a you didn't do it or you did do it. You got to have a discussion of this is what we did, this is what hit us, and what we did do, we did well or we didn't do well. So
So how do you feel about that? Adding in a step, like on an annual basis, where you would evaluate the plan, what you've accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, where you got sidetracked for some reason, maybe good reason, and what you want to hit harder the next year, that sort of process. Or would you be okay?
And I would say, let's do what's happening right here once a year and go over these 5 things.
Sure.
And say, how we doing? I mean, what's wrong with that?
no, I think that's good.
And for years, we had
Let's
an
take a
evaluation
stretch.
session.
Is that something that you've done in the
Yeah.
past?
We used to always have an annual
Let's
evaluation.
take a
We'll
stretch.
recess for
Let's
4
keep-
minutes.
4 minutes?
4 minutes?
Oh, please.
I take 10 minutes.
Can't even get a wine in the
We can go to a 1:45.
hustle.
We have to
We just need to
Let's
start.
try to get back by 11:45, and then we'll keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you back there, Bonnie.
with
your little whippy
me.
out.
We need the energy to stay up for a bit longer. We've had some really good discussion this morning. We made good progress. So let's look at strategy goal
We've
area
gone through
number 2.
Two, and we've called this good
Well, we
progress.
did 5.
We're gonna need
Now
another
let's
meeting.
look at strengthen and expand use of technology. Do you need me to change that to be not a verb, but to be a stated that you're using progressive technology, state-of-the-art technology?
Convert
you're-
to.
Convert to.
I mean, I'm fine with the strengthening because we.
I am too.
We not only have to expand it, but we have
Yep.
to enhance some of what we already have.
Okay.
So, and
Is
if-
everybody okay with that?
Should we, instead of expand, maybe enhance? Either one works.
Yeah, because.
No, the expand is fine
Expand-
because if you think about the whole.
Does anybody not
the whole
have a-
paperless thing.
Does anybody not have a computer on their desk?
In the county,
Yeah.
there are several.
That need computers, that don't
No,
need computers?
not that need computers. There are people that just, their jobs don't.
But
No.
I think the idea of leaving the expand in, we've already talked about the switch over to the New World thing where we have all of the paperless opportunities. And, we simply have to expand those into other departments if we're going to do that.
It's a different capability than what you've got right
Okay.
now
Right.
to do that, so.
Okay.
Okay. So develop a technology plan with identified priorities, budget, and funding. And then looking at the feasibility and the best approach for charging a small fee for online transactions to underwrite the technology budget. And then hiring outside assistance, technical expertise to support
I think we did a good
technology
job on that one.
I'm good with that one.
development. Are we, well,
Wow.
a little fruit helps, huh?
I don't know, I don't know if hire means is right. It should say seek outside.
Oh, yeah,
assistance.
hire sounds like we're actually employing,
could also
doesn't
add
it? Yeah,
as needed.
yeah.
I would put seek and then at the end as needed. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and I'll do the same thing with the one under human resource, the human resources goal.
Right.
Because hire sounds like you're actually hiring someone.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Next one, address infrastructure needs. We just talked about establishing an infrastructure plan, which outlines your needs, your priorities, and probably budget should be here too.
Well, what, we had, at one point in time, which is probably outdated, a 5-year capital improvement plan,
Still have one.
which is probably expired by now. No?
Well, it should be ongoing.
It's not.
Well, it was initiated more than 5 years ago.
Yeah, but it's been ongoing.
But but have we updated it annually?
Yes.
We have?
Danny, yes, Danny
Okay.
has
All right.
that plan.
I think, if I
So-
could, I think there's two pieces of this, though.
Yes.
I think there's the infrastructure, when we talk about the capital improvement plan for the buildings that Danny maintains. But I believe, from sitting in these chairs, we need to talk about the infrastructure of our community. Whether it be water and sewer, whether it be something for roads. And I
But
think,
we don't have any control over either one of them.
I understand we don't currently have any control over either one, but we have the ability to make a difference in both. Because we take care of the bonding for the water and sewer programs for the townships as requested. And we did, not that many years ago, we helped the County Road Commission bond money to do a road improvement. If we get to a point where we want to talk about a county-wide millage for road improvements, the county is going to have to initiate that. So I believe that when we talk about a county goal for infrastructure, we have to not only include county-owned buildings and properties, but we need to talk about community infrastructure.
And Sonny, we took general fund money
I
and
know.
put it in the roads.
I know.
Yeah, hopefully it's not going to be.
But I think, if we're talking about infrastructure for this community, we have to address both. Both the county buildings and properties and the community infrastructure.
At least the ones that we don't control, we got to coordinate or maybe assist, so, I don't know, depending on what we can and can't do.
So there might be a joint plan development process for some
Oh, break up.
areas
Yeah.
because it can't be totally done.
Okay.
Right.
like a
Well,
septic plan.
And
Within this
the coordination with, I don't care if you put it in as a second strategy, that we will coordinate with the Road Commission, TC Talus, on transportation issues.
Everybody okay with that?
I like it.
And I guess the third one would be we will coordinate with the townships in regard to water and sewer issues. You know, we always have, you know, but we truly should set that as a goal or a strategy.
Okay. Everybody, if you're on,
Okay,
make sure
okay
you're
with
okay with adding
Anything
those
in here that we ought to be looking at, stormwater control ordinances or
Stormwater control ordinances have to be done by the local units, and many of the local units have elected to drop out of that ordinance.
Yeah, I'd say 2 or 3 probably.
Yeah, at least that many.
There's 2 or 3 that are contemplating, I don't know if they're going to do it or not, come to the county commission and say, some of us might want to stay with the previous plan, and for those townships that would want to do it, are you okay with us working with Kevin?
I'm just saying, should we
So-
put this as a goal?
No,
No,
Okay,
I think it's just an issue that would come up during the
well,
year.
but if we say it's not a goal, then that means Dave's not gonna work on it.
No, not
well,
necessarily.
that's good.
Well, no, actually, I'm more focused, what I'm going to use is this strategic goal at the top. The
Okay.
key strategies that occur, we're going to add
Sure,
a whole
okay,
bunch.
that's fine.
As we go through this year.
Okay.
When things come up, we're going to be fitting them into this and deciding whether it's part of your priorities, your goals,
Mm-hmm.
or whether they're not on there and maybe we need to add one or, you know, so I'm,
Okay,
Okay.
When
Dan?
it comes to stormwater, I realize it's, legally, it's a township issue or a municipality issue. But whatever we can do to assist them, we should, because water really doesn't know township borders.
I agree.
And if we let this go, what's going to happen is, 5 or 6 years down the line, people in certain areas are going to have their basements flooded and stuff. And the reason why we haven't had it is we've had an organized, county-wide stormwater system, stormwater management plan, where people kept their stormwater on their own property and didn't drain down into other people's property. Yes, we can ignore it for a while, but eventually, we're going to have to handle it. If we handle it right on where the water lands, keep it there as long as possible, we're not going to have new drain districts and tax people. So I think that we don't have to put it as a goal, but we have to keep in mind, we can't ignore the fact that water runs downhill.
Okay. So I'm adding in to this one that we're going to coordinate with the Road Commission and TC Talus on transportation needs and issues, coordinate with the townships on water and sewage and stormwater management. Yeah. Nope.
I don't know if
I'm not warm, I'm sorry, I had my hand up, but you go ahead, Larry.
No.
You're not feeling all that perky, so you go ahead and go first.
It was
Yeah.
We're gonna feel sorry for you.
Well, there are other players than what we've identified, and I don't know if we should be just like tacking who we're going to coordinate.
Just coordinate with
Just
other.
coordinate with other, you know,
Yeah, got it, okay.
with other entities that are involved in this, in those areas.
Got it.
Rather than naming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I was going to say.
Perfect, okay.
Right.
Good.
Got it. Okay, can I go on to the next goal?
Sure.
We good?
Now here
Increase
comes,
community engagement and support.
here's where I take a pounding.
So, we've got hire a public information officer. First of all, the goal, is it stated okay?
Now we're at number 4?
Yep, increase community engagement and support. So the community needs to know your story, it needs to understand the benefits that are brought by the
I would say
county.
Well, we could talk about increasing community engagement, but I'm more concerned, I don't like the word support. I like community engagement, and I like the word public communication,
So,
so.
you know, one of the things that I think is really important is that we really do a good job in engaging the community because we televise our meetings. And that is a critical piece as far as I'm concerned. So we should, you know, in there, we want to continue our community engagement, which supports that kind of programming
And public information.
and public information. You know, and I like the public information because I think, you know, we haven't done a good job other than with our televising our meetings. We're 10 steps ahead of most communities.
I agree.
And so people can tune in if they want to watch what they want to do. We don't have a lot of people here to our meetings, but they are watching us.
Yeah.
And
they
that is
can
part of
later,
our
yeah.
external communications. So do we really need a public information officer
No.
to be able to do that?
No.
So, I mean, when I start looking at what we're doing, and what do we need to do, and what are our needs in the long run, I'm not sure that public information officer is the actual need. You know, I think we're doing a good job on our website site. We're really starting to get into that. You know, phone apps, I think, are going to come into the play in the future as to how we are going to connect with people and how they're going to connect with us. I just think that that's part of the technology piece. And that technology piece really starts to say, this is how we're going to communicate with you in the community. We're not going to hire this person to build a wordsmith and get the information out. We're going to be using technology and what we already have to be able to continue to communicate with the people.
I agree with you that before we were televised and before we had kind of an, you know, basic website, but there wasn't a lot on it, that extracting information for the public to know what we were doing and how we were doing and what we were doing was probably a big challenge, and the only way they can find out was either call administration or get a hold of their county commissioner. But, you know, we attend our township meetings, we make a presentation. Dave now is sending out, which is really, we've gotten a lot of compliments from the townships on your administrator's report. And that's been very helpful. And I think we've come a long way in terms of informing the public what we do on a day-to-day basis and decisions we make. So, I'm the one that was really, you know, pushing the button on this one, and I'm willing just to drop it because I think we're doing a good job in it. I think the issue that we had discussed previously last year and the year before that, when Dennis was here, was we had a position in the health department that was public information. Then we have this kind of marketing person in Commission on Aging that they were contracting with. They had it and then they contracted. I had gone to Dennis and said, well, if we're going to have someone that is involved in public information and marketing or the basic structuring of what is going on in county government, can we just have one person that would do both for all the departments? And rather than just segmenting, this person will do this for this department, this person will do this segment for this other department. So I think the board's got to figure out, do we need those two spots? And if we do need somebody to do something in these areas, one person hopefully should be able to fill all of it for the whole county. So that's why I threw that out at our last meeting.
It seems that, there's a couple things here. First of all, even though you can rely heavily on technology to communicate, someone needs to provide leadership for crafting, what's the message, what are the issues, how do we respond, how do we proactively get ready, you know, so if that's a marketing or a public relations person or someone else, someone needs to do that. Someone needs to write the plan, the communication plan. You could contract with someone to develop a communication plan for you, and then at the end of that process say, we'll never be able to implement this plan without hiring a public relations officer, hiring or contracting with someone on a regular basis to do some things for us. But it does seem like there's some people power needed in here
And
to
I
make
wanna-
this all happen.
I want to get away from the phrase public relations,
Sorry. Public-
because,
yeah,
no, people think we're sugarcoating bad news.
No,
So
no, but
I-
there's,
I want-
there's,
If we're going to do anything, it'll be someone that understands how to, it's a public information person, or it's going to be someone that's going to help us design something that we can better communicate with the public, and like you said, it could be just a contract situation.
it could be a contractor person, I mean, organizations do that all the time, but someone, I think you're going to need some leadership here to make sure that you just have the set of consistent, what happens when you have one person handling the newsletter and the report from Dave, and another person handling the website, is there going to be a lot of fragmentation. And you may have some real key messages that you want to make sure, and things that you want, information that you want to get out in a consistent way to the public, that it might get fragmented that way. So that's my only caution here.
Well, I like that thought.
So what if we don't assume you're going to hire
Right.
anybody, but we do figure out, get the plan done, and then figure out resource needs to implement the plan after?
Does that sound good, Dave, or?
Sure. I mean, the only, in this area, the thing that I find incongruent is the health department has one, resource recovery has one, I think the sheriff department has somebody designated, one of their command officers, as a media liaison, and we really don't, I'm it, and you guys are it. And how do we have full-time positions in those areas when there's so much more going on here? I mean, that's those are niche areas. And I understand that, and they're keeping them busy. I mean, they're putting out a lot of brochures and public information. And I don't doubt that we could keep somebody busy for a 40-hour job. The question is, I think the plan has to precede, any kind of talk about whether you need a person or whether you're going to contract for it. But you got to decide what kind of public information you want to put out there that you're not putting out there now.
Sonny, come through your office.
Well, and I think
we should talk.
one of the strategies here has to be to to continue to provide the television, provide the website, and to keep the website updated. I believe that absolutely, that's probably our number one strategy in increasing our community engagement. I have a lot of mixed feelings about a designated public information officer, because, I know, the person at the health department has a full-time load, and Kim at the Resource Recovery Council, he's busy, he's going out to schools, he's going different things. And on top of that, do one of these people that we've got in these places, do they have the ability to have the knowledge of what's going on in these other departments? I'm not sure that they do. So I'm not sure that any one person can deal with it, as far as the thing, but I do believe we have to have a communication plan. Now, how we coordinate and get to that communication plan, that's probably a discussion that's longer than the next 45 minutes that we have. So, I think we have to work on that communication plan and try to develop how we do that. But, I know that, John spends a lot of time out in townships and different places, and so do our other people in our other departments, between Brownfield and Land Bank, and, we spend a lot of time getting information out to communities and out to organizations. And I think we do a great job of it. I really do. I don't think we have a real significant shortfall. And one of the problems that we have when we start talking about, we got into a big discussion a couple years ago about press releases and doing regular press releases. Well, first you got to get a local media that will actually publish it and publish it the way you wrote it. And, whether you're, I don't know. I don't want to sit here and bash the local media, but I'm not sure how objective they are on a very regular
They
basis.
buy it by the barrel.
Okay, so we're going to develop the plan, and then identify what resources are needed to execute it. We're going to continue televising meetings, and we're going to keep the website updated here.
So who's going to develop the plan?
Well, I was going to add in here, you might contract with someone to do that. I mean, that's a real typical thing, to contract with someone to do a communications plan.
Yeah, we might just
Just to say we're going to do it,
bring
we got to pick someone
forward
to do
some
it.
thoughts for you and have you debate
All right.
how best to get started on that
Yeah.
project. But as
mean,
far
this-
as the key strategy, I think that's the key strategy in this area. You know, you want to kind of look at overall at how we're communicating with the public and how we're educating the public on what we do. And we'll look at different ways of doing that. I mean, I've got in my head, you know, there's a lot of different techniques that have been used out there, citizen academies and things like that, really are little different ways of doing things, but
Did you say Citizen Academy?
right.
What is that?
Well, once a year, you put together a curriculum of, you know, you get your department heads to put together short presentations and kind of invite 35 citizens to join.
How cool is that?
And they
That's cool.
do a Wednesday night thing for a month, and, you know, different departments, we explain the budget to them, we explain what our county departments do, and then we give them a certificate at the end saying
Yeah,
they're...
that's cool. That's cool.
And
It's
then
a
they're
really, you know,
ambassadors
it's a-
because they really understand what
It's a
they're doing.
fantastic way of getting people educated about what county government does, and then they become advocates for us,
I know.
because they know what
I
we're
heard
doing.
you.
And then they all run against us.
That's right. So that's why we need to put it in a plan or not.
And it's not a completely new concept. MSU Extension operated a citizen planner program for about the last 10 years where they bring people in and they do that. And I think there's a lot of merit for that.
John wanted to make comment. You need
sorry,
to be on the
John.
microphone in order to do that.
I can use this.
Okay, very good.
Sorry to butt in, John Syke, Planning Director for the county. I just wanted to mention to think of what information that's out there isn't necessarily just focused on informing our public, but we have found through the programs that we've done that information is actually very important, especially when it's out beyond the county boundaries, whether it's state level government or foundations or federal government. They look to see what we're doing, and when they hear about the things that we're doing, they want to be part of successful communities, and they want to add on. So we find that information, whether it's the website or whatever, is a great way to get increased revenues back into the county, whether it's grants or other types of programming. So it's really, I think, vital, especially in this type of age that we're in, that information is also about really benefiting our programs that we have within the county.
It really
thank
does
you.
fit with your
Yeah.
revenue generation plan. And if you were going to do some different things with customer service standards or with using technology to do online payments and stuff, you need a good information campaign to help with that. I tucked in this area, they identify a highly visible project. That came up. I didn't really know where exactly to put that or what to do with that, so I tucked it here. What do you think?
I brought that up.
Yeah.
And I was envisioning something that we could do that, it wouldn't have to be an ongoing thing, but one thing that would stir our enthusiasm. Maybe it's the 911 thing. Maybe we put up at the Cherry Festival, I know that the Masons one time put up a tent, and they manned this ID thing for children, if they get lost, how they get found. Maybe we could do that for 911 for a week at the
Smart
festival.
911
Smart
thing.
911, and we man it, we do it. And
We do the baby tent.
the baby test.
Oh, yeah.
What's the baby?
We will invite you to be part of that.
And I said,
That's all you need to know.
I don't know, maybe I'm being too, I don't know.
well, I've got an idea for everybody, and
Wash windows.
no, it's not washing windows at Twin Lakes. May 19th, the Commission on Aging delivers barbecues to seniors that can't get out. And it's a volunteer thing, and nobody gets paid for it. You use your own car, your own gas, but in your own time. And there's a sign in the elevator, as a matter of
I
fact.
saw that, yeah.
So,
I'm thinking
There's a
something that
start.
we let the community know we're going to do it through this information. We build up some momentum, we show up, we do it, we get the Record Eagle report on it, maybe the TV shows we're doing it. Just one thing a year, maybe 911 would, Smart 911 would be it. That'd be a wonderful thing.
I think so,
Maybe
too.
a dunk tank to raise some money.
No,
No, no, no, no.
I suggested one year during a budget meeting that we set up a dunk tank out in front and just take turns and charge. And we would
Pay
in
for-
no time at all.
cold, I'll tell you.
Yes.
You could pay for the compensation increases. You could pay for the compensation increases and greatly improve
Yeah.
employee morale all at
There
one
you go,
time.
employees
It's gonna be
everything.
90 degrees for a month, and the day I have to sit in that drop tank, it'll be 60.
I did that at
Okay,
Blair Township, and it was 60. It was cold.
so I'm going to leave this in then. It sounds like there might be some project that you'll identify to work on. We won't say what it is right now.
Just for fun.
We'll just leave it in, and you can figure out what that is. We
Dr.
talked
Lathrop, I think that's
earlier about
I like
listening
the
devices.
Smart 911, I like that.
Thanks.
We talked a little bit earlier about polls, community surveys about needs, listening devices to capture needs. Do you want me to integrate that in here? That you might have some set of strategies around just collecting input, polling people, hearing from them, getting feedback?
I'm not that into doing more polls, personally. I think we get slammed with polls all the time. We are in the community, that's our responsibility to bring the community's stuff back to the board.
I take it back. I take it
I'm sorry.
Take it back.
Yeah, they're inundated with polls and the phone
Okay.
and everything.
Can I do
Okay.
that? Can I take it back?
No, that's fine.
Take it
No,
back.
but I
Yes.
can't change my mind. I
Yes.
do.
But I
You're
think-
allowed to
But
do
I think
that.
your idea,
Okay.
I have asked the employees of the county to join in being part of the Cherry Festival, and I like the possibility of integrating Smart 911 with that.
That'd be cool, yeah.
That could be our signature project, to be
That
able
could be
to,
our float thing.
or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So I'll bring that to the meeting tomorrow morning.
Great.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to skip the next one. We're going to go to the next goal. Expand the capabilities of the Board of Commissioners. And what I meant by that term is that you are all stretched pretty thin. You need to have more time. We talked about more time for planning and strategizing as a group, but also refining your committee structure so that you have a little.
Look at the hands go up.
Okay, so go for it. Yeah,
Okay.
I may not have.
I just, before we get started, we didn't go to one of our meetings this month already, and I would like to see whether or not we can go to twice-a-month meetings instead of weekly meetings, and whether or not we can put all of our reports and everything else into,
4 hours.
just do it, not so much committee of the whole, but a county commission meeting twice a month. So therefore, you're not going to be rehashing the stuff to be able to be voted on. You are actually doing it. Just a thought. And then also, we need to look at what is our committee structure? Who do we actually have to be going to those meetings? Or if we're not, how do we get those reports back? Dr. Lathrop, you're next.
Well, I was just going to say that this type of meeting here, we have these, 7 things. This meeting, I love these meetings.
Yep.
And I think we need more of these meetings. You mentioned that every so often there's a Wednesday that we don't have a meeting. And I'd just like to see more of these meetings, not just once a year, maybe 3 times a year, where we monitor and manage how and John said, maybe we just pick item 1 and item 2, and we get together and we say, how are we doing on item 1 and item 2? Because I feel like at the meetings that we do have, I'm always just reacting to the stuff that's being thrown at me versus having a vision and working on that vision. I think we need more of these types of meetings. So going to two times a month and maybe adding a vision meeting would be cool.
Okay. Larry?
Well, I guess I want to get back to what I think is reality, and that is that we have a lot of things that are going to continue to come at us during this economic times, and we're at a kind of a,
a state and government where there's a lot of things happening at the state level and the federal government that are going to impact us that we don't know yet. We took our meeting structure from 5 meetings down to 3. And for the most part, 98% of those meetings have lasted for at least 4 hours in the evening. And not only have our issues become more complex, but they involve more discussion, and we started meetings at 7, we're lucky to get out here by 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So I am not in favor of taking the meetings and shortening them to less meetings. I think that having the pre-discussion meetings, I would call them preliminary, they're all preliminary recommendation meetings anyways, but we basically have 3 study sessions, and then we have a formal meeting to adopt all the recommendations coming in. The public knows we meet the first 3 Wednesdays and the last Wednesday of the month. They know we meet here. We know we're televised. When we do make a preliminary decision on the various issues of county government, it gives time for the public to react to those recommendations, and it gives time for the media to react to those and report those. And then there are a lot of times that when we come to the board meeting, that I've had enough time to absorb the discussion and absorb public input, where I might want to bring something else up or change my mind on the vote or do something, or the board may, in a lot of cases, have changed direction. So I'm not into going in, bang. I like the approach that we have, that we've put together. I think it's a better process, not only for us, but for the public, and for us to respond to what we think is a good idea, and then making the final decision at the end of the month, and we've got time to think about it throughout the month. And then we are, outside of 1 or 2 meetings, we are spending 4 hours a meeting into these meetings with a consent calendar. So I'm not in favor of, at least at this point, changing or narrowing down those meetings. Now, when we got together, when I was transitioning from chairman and we were going to Herb and as Sonny as vice chair, that I think we looked at a number of meetings that were liaison and that we didn't have votes on and those kinds of things, and I think we narrowed those down. And as the usual practice of the county commission, those that had the time, that were retired, no longer employed or part, whatever, they could take on more assignments or were self-employed, and the ones that could not, they absorbed, some meetings, and then we took the rest. Well, so far, I haven't heard any complaints, but I think that my schedule's fine with the number of meetings I've absorbed and taken on. So I think it's important that the county commission stay active in what we feel are the important boards to attend, which I think we've identified, and that, we could report back, we would know what's going on, those kinds of things. So I think in my mind, I think we've narrowed down what we think is important to attend and not to attend. And for those who have decided to attend the meetings, that we have said, it's not necessary that you attend, but, you can do so on your own accord, which some commissioners have continued to do. I'm fine with that. So, at this point, I don't, unless somebody speaks up that kind of hits me across the head, I think we're, at this point, fine with the structure.
What about the rest of you? How do you feel about the number of meetings and the committees that you're
Chris?
involved in?
I personally live to go to meetings. I'm going to suggest that, well, at least this is my opinion, and I'm chair of Public Health and Safety. I do not think we need to meet every month with Public Health and
So maybe
Safety.
fewer meetings.
I
for
think
some
we
of
could
those
get by with every other month. That's just my personal opinion on that committee. I do not think that's the case with RM&A and Ways and Means. I think those need to be every month. But I think that we could cut back on Public Health and Safety to every other month, so let me hear what everyone else thinks about that.
Dick?
Well, I don't think we should change anything, and just like this month, you didn't have anything to put on public health, well, we didn't have it. That's fine. We don't meet for nothing, but I like this system. I won't say I like it better than our old system where we just had, like 4 people.
Yeah.
I like that better, but I don't think it would work as good now. And generally, Larry's right, we're here quite a few hours, taking care of the business that we've got. I don't know how we could do it with fewer meetings, except you just plan them for all day. And you're not gonna get me here for that.
Sure. Charlie?
I guess my issue is that I hear this comment about some people working, is everybody works. Everyone should split this up. It shouldn't be based on, this guy is a doctor, this guy has whatever. If you're here on this commission, you're here on the committee, or the board.
That's where you
And
work.
I do not feel that some people's time's more important than other people's time, and I'm steadfast about that. And I've felt that since I've been on this board, period.
Sonny?
I think my committee assignment number is about the same as everybody else's is, but, I think the idea that the chairman of the subcommittees has the opportunity to say, look, there's nothing on the agenda that we have to meet this month, therefore we don't have the meeting. For the last 2 years, I was chairman of Public Health and Safety. We missed a lot of meetings. There just simply wasn't anything that we had to have the decision.
We've missed 2 so far this year.
But I've also seen Public Health and Safety when there were issues that absolutely needed to be taken care of, and they needed to be taken care of directly. So, I don't know that I'm prepared to eliminate any of the meetings, but I like the flexibility of giving the chairman the opportunity to say, look, there's nothing on this agenda that we have to take care of. We can add this to Ways and Means if it's a financial thing, or we will just simply bring it to the Board of Commissioners at the end of the month. And I think that's worked very well, and I don't have any problem with continuing that.
Dan?
Well, I'm finding, maybe it's just me, my personality, but when I show up like at the Peninsula Township meeting, really, they don't want to hear from me. They get David's report, and I was at the city meeting last time, and I gave a report, and all the looks on their faces, I could tell they just wished I would shut up and go away. They have so much important stuff that they're doing. And again, I was talking to the mayor about it. He says, well, I get Dave's report, and I can disseminate that, we can ask you questions. But I'm finding that township and city, I feel like, I feel a little unwanted, and I show up there. Maybe I don't need to show up so often. I don't know. But what do you guys think?
But the important thing about going to the township meetings isn't what you say, it's what you listen to. You go there to learn what they're doing.
Okay.
I think the other thing is, it's not just a report to their board, it's a report to the community. And the community doesn't always tie into that administrator's report. And we're just now getting more into that administrator's report to feel where that's going to go. And, I've always felt welcome to the township that when I give my report. And, because they're televised, that I'm reporting not just to that board, I'm reporting to the community.
Okay, that's
So,
why you should look at it then.
I think you just need to continue doing what you're doing.
Okay.
And feel comfortable with it. And, sometimes, the old board used to give me a hard time about, how much time I'd spent, but, I feel that what I'm giving is important stuff from the county, and so therefore we continue doing it. So Dick is right, though, is we're listening to what's going on in their township so that we know. And that's why I'm asking people from the townships to come in and talk to us on a monthly basis, because it gives us that two-way street. It's opening those doors to keep that going. Dave, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, you just keep it mercifully short. I've got a lot of information on that administrator report. You can't possibly go through all of it. You can pick, before you go into the meeting, circle three of them and just mention those. And
Yeah, I
I think
usually do
that's,
it.
and if they have the report in their hand, they've got a question about something else in there.
So it's important to go and listen and say a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I usually
I
have
think
about
that's
20
probably
things
right.
on my report. So they just know that I'm going to be coming and I'm going to give an update.
They know you're
And
talking.
you highlight, for instance, Law Day. I went to Garfield and I told everyone that Law Day at the Senior Center, there will be attorneys there who are going to, for free, prepare a simple will for seniors who might not otherwise be able to do that. Or, for instance, the May 19th barbecue delivery meals, just to let people know they can volunteer for this if they would like to.
One of the things I did talk about was on this board, we have there's a couple of openings on the building board and on the community mental health board. I mentioned that in front of the camera because I felt that needed to be disseminated. So I just want to know your input.
So should I
the thing of it
take
is
off?
you want to get rid of refine the committee structure, you're
Great.
comfortable with what you got? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
I think I don't even know if it's a goal, to be honest with you. I mean, I think we're fine in that area.
So, but I think the expanding capabilities of the Board of Commissioners, I think, continue to support the MAC and NACO.
All right, okay.
Which helps you to strengthen what your duties and responsibilities are for as a commissioner and any other training events that the commissioners would go to.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that you're looking at, that you're helping the commissioners become better commissioners.
I'm fine.
And it's just like employees. When you say, employees, we want you to have more capabilities of being able to go to training, we as commissioners have to have that also as one of our goals, that we're willing to support, that we can go to these training events.
Okay, so
And then
adding
I
that in.
think Dr. Lathrop's thing on putting in a strategizing time in our agenda would be an excellent idea, that we can just kind of, when we have that fourth Wednesday or something, that we can say, staff, plan that fourth Wednesday that we have in a 5 Wednesday month, that will be a time for us to look at our strategy.
So much for
And
your
let's keep it to an
Florida
hour
Florida
and
interference.
define what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. So
I've already booked those
structured on a
books to
topic. You're out of luck.
I've already booked those weeks to Florida
You're out
for the year.
We'll Skype you then.
Okay.
Dave had a comment.
Oh, sorry, Dave.
Well, one of the things that I planned on doing once we get through the strategic planning process was to take these and number them, the strategic goals, and then when I'm reporting to you, they're either going to have a number next to them or they're not. And when they don't, then we're going to have to talk about why they don't and whether we should be doing that or not, because it doesn't fit into any of our goals. And so the administrator's report becomes my report to you, but it's also my report on progress toward these goals. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to take all those things and say, well, the ones that were, some of them cross over, financial stability and, helping this area over here, infrastructure needs or whatever. They're going to have several things on them, and I'm going to report back to you, and at the annual evaluation, that's going to be part of that annual review of your goals, too. So you're going to decide whether, how many of those we hit, how many we didn't hit, why we didn't hit them. And that's all going to be part of that evaluation process that I go through.
Sure.
And so you're going to see that the administrative report is not just going to be a report anymore. It's going to be actually that piece that you get reported on monthly. And it grows monthly. The strategies that we add every month. Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because we want to increase our financial stability, and
It's kind of a report card.
every month.
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
That's the idea. And I've done this before. I did this in Midland, and it worked out really well. I got into a routine with it. The commissioners got into a routine at the end of the year. It was really easy to do an annual report on it, and it was easy to report to the community what we had accomplished.
But it's also an easy tool to build to determine how well you're doing your job.
Yes.
When we start looking at that.
And how well you're doing yours.
That's right.
Because there's some things here for you as well. Yep. All right, the last goal has no strategies. Maybe it's not needed. I thought maybe there were some things that didn't fall anywhere in this plan that you felt needed to be addressed here.
Well,
So
I
this
think-
is the initiatives the bigger initiatives that you might want to drive.
We are the Health Department Board. And so therefore, continue to support the Health Department's goals and their initiatives is probably one of those things we have to be able to put in there. Because they have established within their organization what their goals are and how they want it. And so we need to get that and be able to continue to support those goals. Would be one of my strategies, I think.
We've got a big project coming up with the Boardman dams. We've still
Yep.
got to pull out the Boardman and Sabin dams. That's you know,
Yep.
that's kind of follows, you know, it doesn't fall under any of these other things. They kind of fall.
Okay.
I'm not sure that the term economic should be there. Because when you read it, it talks about the economic health and quality. You
Yeah,
know,
I agree.
I think I'd take the term economic out of it.
I agree.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I
Yes,
do.
I
Because,
do.
you know, EDC has been taken away from us.
Yeah.
You know, we no longer do a county economic development corporation.
Yeah, we
I-
do, it's
it-
just not,
Well, we
Well,
as the
it's
county do not
stagnant.
operate an economic development corporation.
they meet every other month.
They meet, but we don't control the thing. You know, I like the idea of having it say to advance the health and quality of life in our region. I think that fits completely to the big projects, the Boardman Dams project, you know, other things that happen. You know, you're right, we are the health department's board, but economic development, I don't believe is a county function anymore. John can maybe speak to that because he's, you know, he runs that department that I handled the EDC for years.
Chris?
Sure, why not?
Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, thank you again, John Syke, Planning Director for the county. Well, you're right, the revolving loan fund that was part of the EDC, which was their primary function, is being, in the process of being transferred over to the Chamber Foundation Board, and will be maintained there. But I think when we look at what the next Michigan Development Corporation and what that's trying to do, puts us in a different position in terms of economic development, where the county is no longer a, maybe a financing arm, but does have the ability, working in concert with the local units of government, to do economic development. And we're looking at putting those set of public incentives together on the public side, so that then we could work with the Traverse Bay Economic Development Corporation and other entities in terms of advancing it. So we're looking at it more as a public-private partnership. So it's more, instead of the county doing its own thing, but it's actually part of a partnership, is where we're kind of leading this.
Would this fall under address infrastructure needs, or is it different?
Well, I think those public incentives, I mean, when you look at them, tend to focus on infrastructure. I mean, there are ways to enhance growth in the community that results in job creation and so forth, and private investment, but they tend to stay in the public realm, because these often relate to public tax dollars, so it is often has to be, focused on things like public infrastructure.
I guess in my mind, I at least want to see a separation of the term economic
From
and
the
the
health.
health.
Yeah.
You know, I
Chris,
think
you had a
there's.
comment?
I do. I think if we advance the health and quality of life in the region, the economics will basically take care of itself. I believe government's role in economic development is basically to get out of the way and let the private sector do what they do. So I do not think economic needs to be in there.
And we talked about that earlier when we talked about our strategic focus in removing barriers.
Dean, you had a comment?
Well, I really don't want to see economic development not on here, so I'm kind of going to side with John, but I thought a place where you could maybe somehow tuck this in is your goal where you're maintaining your financial stability. Tax base is very important to achieve that. Anything we can do with economic development, in most cases, not all cases, would enhance that tax base. So maybe it could be somehow added at some point as a strategy under that.
So something like support economic development initiatives
Yes.
in the region?
John, I just don't want to see that. You're involved in economic development to different levels, different degrees, and I think it's very important, as Commissioner Maxbauer said, I think it needs to be here.
Well, I think,
somewhere.
we also support the land bank, the brownfield. Where do we put that? Should that be in the strategic plan here, or is that over in the financial stability?
Well, I think there's
Larry?
a difference.
I'd like to just piggyback on what Dean is saying. It's my understanding with talking with some Chamber of Commerce representatives is that The region has, and I'm talking about counties surrounding Grand Traverse and our northern Michigan market, have been, the county governments have been consistently participating in making contributions to the Chamber of Commerce-led economic development plan within their region to assist in economic development, both in residential and the commercial side, that kind of a thing, to not only stabilize the economic, but to get it moving in the right direction. And that, as you know, Grand Traverse County had a history of contributing, I think, $20,000 from our fund balance and then $20,000 from the Economic Development Fund to the Chamber's effort in economic development on an annualized basis. And I think last year was the first year that I can recognize in, I guess, my 20 years that we did not have anything in the budget for that. So when Dean talks about what we do or how we participate in economic development, even though we're not initially on the front end of it, I think this board has to have a discussion about the dividend and the value of those that are proceeding with economic development, our partners like the Chamber of Commerce, who are heavily involved in it, and we got to recognize that we do have a dividend for our investment. That means more assessed, better, more assessed values, more recordings, more construction, more commercial development, more, whatever, diversification in our tax base, that kind of a thing. So at some point in time, and I know it's not right now, but we're going to have a discussion about what level of involvement are we going to have in economic development outside of this new Michigan program that's going to be taking over this Economic Development Fund. The Chamber still has a role in conjunction with that or separate from that in trying to work with economic development in our region. I was trying to get, and Dave knows more about this than I do because he's got some more history and maybe some more data about what counties do around our area and what's going on, so.
Go ahead, Dave.
What you said about the counties around us, they do contribute to economic development, and it's a fact that we stopped doing that. The only thing that I see when I look at what we're doing, we don't have anybody designated. We don't have our process for when a business comes into our community and goes, wow, Grand Traverse County, you got some nice assets. They look at some of the things we have, the Chamber might have, or, the various organizations that promote our area. But we've got all these great tools. Next Michigan is coming up, and we've got a ton of tools that brownfields, land bank, but we don't have anybody coordinating and shepherding and being the go-to person to take a business and say, oh, you've got some questions about how to get your business started here, how to get located here. So, the Chamber's trying to do, they're filling that void right now, but they just don't have the resources. That's the problem, is that to do it correctly, you've got to have enough resources to do it.
How much time do you have, John?
Exactly. John's not an economic development guy, he's a planner.
Go ahead, John.
He's the tools end.
Dave makes a good point, because one of the things, I agree with you, I don't think government is here, our best is to be a partner. What we really need is that, on that private side, working with those economic development organizations, because what we do is in the public realm, and what those economic development organizations like the TVEDC are enabled to do is to have those more intimate conversations with those businesses to really identify what their needs are. We're just a partner when there's an opportunity where there needs to be a push for some significant investment into our community that results in increased tax base, job creation, et cetera. But so that's what I mean by that public-private partnership. Right now, Dave's right, we got these public incentives, and whether it's Brownfield or Next Michigan or whatever, but we can't effectively market those to the business sector without that economic development organization in place.
Sonny?
Well, and I think I like the idea of taking the economic piece and putting it in under a financial thing, that we support the EDC. I believe in that. But as far as this goal the seventh goal here, pursue, advance the health and quality of life of our region. I think I'd like to take economic out of that piece and
Yeah.
maybe put it back over in the financial part.
Yeah.
Because under this health and quality, I'd like to stress the programming that the health department does. You know, I think, you know, they do a fabulous job over there. They've got all kinds of programs, you know, between WIC and everything else. And I think we have to give ourselves credit for what we've done with the land bank and the housing
Land
initiative.
bank could come under here.
And I think that belongs, I believe that belongs under here, that has to do with the quality of life. You know, the affordable housing commitment, the commitment to the, you know, obviously the immediate one is the depot project.
Well, the other thing is that should this be where we support the Grand Vision? And is this also a place where we have a poverty reduction initiative that's been working on? You know, I'm trying to come up with a discussion on if you have economic development and you have high unemployment and you have a high poverty, how do you marriage the two? How do you start making economic development a tool to help people get off from poverty and into the workforce? I don't know all those discussions, but if the strategy was that the people that are part of that sit down and say, okay, you know, maybe what we want to do is we want to reduce the reliance on Father Fred and the Goodwill industry by 25% in the next 5 years through economic development and other programs that we have. Let's have that discussion. So should the county be part of that discussion? I think absolutely we need to be there. But I think also, do we have to put the money into it? Maybe, maybe not. Economic development, I think we do. We already do a lot because we give tax abatements. And when you start giving tax abatement, that's a huge tool in economic development. How much money are we spending in that direction to determine, you know, if we said we spend $1 million a year in economic development because of tax abatements, that's a big investment. And so we need those kind of discussions as to what we're going to do. How do we support the collaboratives, the human services agencies that work on? I mean, we put a very small amount of money into those dues on a yearly basis that do a huge amount of impact on our community. So I'm just throwing these out.
Yeah.
Dr. Lathrop, you had a comment?
Well, I was going to say, under the key strategies for health, I know supporting our health department is important. What about collaborating on certain items with Munson? For instance, they just recently had a big weight loss deal. Maybe we could in some way collaborate with them in terms of healthy issues. They're constantly working on that. Just an idea.
We just had the report to the community from Munson as to how healthy we are. So, yeah.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll create one item, collaborate appropriately, on community-wide initiatives such as poverty reduction, Grand Vision.
Don't mention Grand Vision.
Don't mention Grand
No.
Vision.
No.
Why not?
Here's the deal, and I guess I'm on the forefront of this at the Council of Governments. The Grand Vision was a document that was a community consensus document that was a 2-year project, whatever, based on accelerated growth in our market that we anticipated happening before the crunch hit and assessed values went down. We thought we were going to see all the baby boomers move up here. We were going to have accelerated growth, and we needed to have this growth in regional pockets and then have a transfer state. That all has stopped, and there is no growth. Everything is stagnant. We don't know when the growth is going to come and when it's going to come or if it's going to come in our lifetime. Now the focus is on placemaking. Take what you have now and how do we make it better to attract people to your communities based on the growth level that you have now. You know, do you have the arts? Do you have trails? Do you have this? Do you have that would make people want to live and stay here in your community? So, the grand, even though we put a lot of time, money, and resources, and staff time, and everything else in this Grand Vision product, the Grand Vision product isn't ready for use. None of the townships it's sitting on the shelf right now because there isn't the growth that we're seeing that we anticipated. So now the council governments and everybody else wants to know, and they're doing these seminars on what's called placemaking, is how do we make our town, Acme, and all these other communities more attractive for people to come and live? And recognizing that we're not going to have growth for quite a while. So, at least the growth that was anticipated from the Grand Vision. So I don't want to have people confused that, we're hyped up on this big, expansive growth model at this moment. I think we got to, I'm not dismissing it or saying it's a bad project or someday it won't be used, but right now the focus is on how do we take what we have now and make it better.
Okay. Well, rather than doing a grocery list of everything we can think of here, what I'm thinking is there's one strategy about supporting initiatives throughout the region, and for example, the Poverty Reduction Initiative, the Human Resources Collaborative, because there'll probably be, if we sat for another 10 minutes, we could probably think of 20 other ones,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we want to make sure
That's fine.
that we don't leave anybody off the list, but that we include some strategy here. Does that make some sense? And then I'll move the economic development to strategy 1 and integrate some language
Perfect.
there.
Head nodding.
I think I would include recreational opportunities in there when we talk about health, because, we've spent a lot of effort, our health department, or our Parks and Recreation department has spent a lot of effort dealing with a new Parks and Recreation plan. They have a new name for it, but I can never remember what it is. So I
It's a
stepped off
5-year
Parks and Rec.
DNRE plan.
Yeah,
what
that's
it
it.
is.
Anyway,
Park
but,
should be there.
And a
just the
civic
idea
center
that,
master plan.
just the idea is that, if we're talking about, advancing health and quality of life in our region, we need to enhance recreational opportunities.
Okay. Anything else?
Wow.
Good job.
Yeah.
You did a good job. We got through, Larry didn't think we could do it. We got through all the goals.
Yeah, we did.
We did it in 10 minutes, 12 minutes short. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the next draft. I will create the next draft of this. I'm also going to do a bigger document in case you need the language there to support it. It's all going to be marked draft. We'll route it. Please comment, send me your thoughts. And if I can, unless I get really divergent comments, I'll try to integrate things in without bringing it back to another meeting. We'll get you, as it gets to a point where it's pretty final, we'll get it to you for an approval. If you need me back on yours, I'm back anytime you want me. Maybe at one of your strategy sessions, you might invite me to come, and we'll see how you're doing.
Just a quick clarification question. What we would look at as a final document, it's not going to be, is it going to be a similar format to the current strategic plan, or you're going to put those in place of what we have?
I'm going to give you both. I'm going to give you a
What do you
blueprint, and I'm going to give you an actual planning document.
All right, because I guess my next question is that now that we've got at least a draft of the strategic goal and key strategies would be kind of a bullet point general phrases. Then we have that whole list of stuff that we listed down on those cards, all right?
It's in the appendix of the bigger document.
Right. Now, my
Yeah.
question are those things going to be separated in these strategic goals and then be downloaded in those areas?
No. They are integrated all throughout this document. I took that list from the flip chart sheets, and you will see when you look through that list, there's things that impact, there's areas that I created a strategy. So I took those and used them to draft the document that you've got.
So the strategic planning document will or will not have that list?
The list is already in the appendix. It's appendix 1.
It would be in the appendix of the strategic
It's appendix 1,
plan.
and then from those items on that list, I took those and had integrated it throughout the document.
So I guess the question, I mean, I want to come back to that same question. Was it the last plan that we had, that we took those items and John, you put them underneath each one of the goal deals? Now, would we not want to do that again?
Not necessarily.
We had a list of the current state that we put up, so they weren't necessarily,
I'm just trying to figure out if it would be more appropriate to do that rather than just have it
Well,
as
that's what
appendix.
historically has always been kind of the approach,
Yeah.
and I think this is trying to stream that a little bit more, and so all those items that were identified on there are in here, and the idea is that those helped to really kind of define specific key strategies under these various goals that you have. So those things are, like Pam was saying, are somewhat implied or covered by some of these strategies, and it's not to say that you can't delve down into those real detailed things that are listed in the appendix, but the idea is that they're summarized and covered in a lot of these different strategies.
So can the appendix be outlined per strategy?
I don't think so, because I think some of the thing about the appendix and the list
I guess I'd have to look at it.
are specific projects or specific issues. And I think that issue, these general strategies that we have, a particular issue may apply under a couple different strategies, depending on which one you look at.
Yeah, it's kind of a mishmash of
So it's
stuff,
kinda-
that's the problem.
This is the
Yeah.
20,000-foot level look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So here's
this
what we
is an
got.
overall,
It's
this is an
dizzy at
overall
20,000.
evaluation,
Yeah.
Well,
without looking at specific projects.
As opposed to
Yeah.
normally?
So it would be worthwhile for you to look through the Appendix 1 and see if there's anything that you think is really missing as you're reviewing the draft that I do. And the departments each have a set of strategies and plans, so,
Well, it's close.
Yeah.
I mean, they're close.
yeah, I did
she
my
did a good
best.
job with it.
I did my best.
By the way, Pam, thank you.
Yeah, good job, Pam.
I did my best, Larry. But I'm not going to say I didn't miss something, so,
I
yeah.
have a couple of questions. Do we feel that we want to get back together again as a strategic plan when she gets this, or do we want to do it as part of one of our meetings?
I guess I can answer
think
that
you
better
just
once I see
adopted
the final draft.
First.
I'm just asking a question.
We're gonna see it.
Should we not have a meeting to see it, like Dick says, maybe?
No, we don't need a meeting to see
Okay,
it.
that's fine. So I'm just going to go through. Does everybody feel comfortable with what we did today? Is there anything we missed?
I think we did a good job.
Okay? I think that if there's no other comment, we don't have any public.
Yes, we do.
Oh, excuse me. Would you like to make a comment, Ms. Public?
Well, I just wanted to wish Larry a happy birthday.
Oh, thank
Do
you.
we need to sing to him?
I did.
Never mind.
How did you find that out?
Well, I think it's Miss Ann.
I think it was under the jail records.
So,
I think I seen it in the jail records.
Jail record.
yeah.
Jail records.
These are.
Bonnie, do you have
I
anything
thought
to
that
add?
juvenile record was locked and sealed.
Okay.
Is it today?
Dean, Dave, do you have anything?
I don't
All
tell
right.
anybody about my birthday.
Then we are
I
adjourned.
motion to
Thank
adjourn.
you, everybody.
Thank you,
It's a
Pam.
good
Appreciate your help.
How'd they find out?
Wow, happy
That's been the
birthday.
best kept secret.